He says he's ready whenever you are, sir.
Okay, we're going to call this meeting to order. It is 6 o'clock. And we will begin with the roll call.
Mr. Heyman?
Present.
Mr. Blades?
Present.
Mr. Rajaratnam?
Present.
Ms. Breeden?
Present.
And we have Mayor Bruin on WebEx.
Present.
5 present. We have a quorum.
Okay, next we will have the approval of the agenda.
Was there a last minute change? Is it fine how it is, Rika?
With that ordinance?
Right.
Yes, we're fine. On the
Okay.
agenda part.
So moved.
Second.
Mayor Bruin?
Aye.
Mr. Blades?
Aye.
Mr. Rajaratnam?
Aye.
Mr. Heyman?
Aye.
Ms. Breeden?
Aye.
5 ayes, motion carries.
Okay, now if everybody will please follow me with the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to
The flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Liberty and justice for all.
Please join me in prayer if you would. Lord, thank you for giving us this beautiful day. Lord, thank you for giving us the opportunity to gather here. Lord, pray for our country, protect our country. I pray for the troops who are in harm's way. Lord, give them your protection. I pray for the war, Lord, which is taking place in Ukraine. Give them your protection, Lord. Let there be peace in that area. Lord, pray for our police department. Lord, give them your protection as they protect our city here. Lord, be with all of us, Lord, as we discuss many issues which are essential for this community. Lord, let our decisions be useful for this community. Bless each one of us here, Lord. In Jesus' precious name I pray. Amen.
Amen. Okay, next we will have our presentation. This is the Annual Comprehensive Financial Report, or CAFR, and this will be presented by our Finance Director, Sharice.
Yeah.
Good evening, Council. Tonight we have our auditor, Coley Delaney, on the line, and he's going to be giving a presentation about the fiscal year 21 Annual Comprehensive Financial Report, and then I will be available for any questions you may have. Coley, I'll go ahead and turn it over to you now.
Okay, thanks, Sherry. All right. Can you guys see my screen?
Yes, we can hear you.
We can hear you.
Yeah, we can hear you, but we cannot see your screen yet.
1 second.
All right.
Boom. There we
See
go.
now?
We're up.
All right.
There we go.
All right. Well, thanks for having me tonight. Again, my name is Coley Delaney. I am a partner with the Poon Group and was the engagement partner for the fiscal year ended June 30, 2021 financial statement audit for the city of Ridgecrest. A few things. What I'm going to cover in my presentation here today is some required communications from generally accepted auditing standards. I'm going to go over some audit responsibilities, a brief overview of the financial statements. We're going to look at a few financial indicators and some key pension and OPEB information, and then we'll go over the audit results. All right, so starting with the required communications. Regarding independence, we have, as our firm and individuals within our firm working on the job, have complied with all relevant requirements regarding independence. Regarding significant accounting policies, the city disclosed all significant accounting policies in Note 1 to the financial statements. The city implemented GASB Statement Number 84 fiduciary activities this year. And significant estimates used in the financial statements included depreciation on capital assets, calculation of the net other post-employment or OPEB liability, and the calculation of the net pension liability. As far as GASB 84 is concerned, that implementing that standard resulted in a $420,000 prior period adjustment to fiduciary activities. That's just due to the change in the reporting model. There were some other GASB statements that were implemented this year, but but they did not actually have any effect on the city's financial reporting, so I left those out. In the annual comprehensive financial report, there are some disclosures that we'd like to point out in the footnotes. Note 1, summary of significant accounting policies. Obviously, as it says there, lists out all the city's significant accounting policies. Note 10 is where we have information on the pension plans. Note 11 is OPEB. Note 12 is, we call that other required disclosures, and that includes information about funds with deficit fund balances, as well as it lists out expenditures in excess of appropriations within certain funds as well. Note 13 is the classification of fund balances for governmental funds. And Note 16 is includes information about subsequent events, which describes American Rescue Plan Act fund for $6.9 million. As far as misstatements, there were no corrected or uncorrected misstatements reported, and management has informed us that, and to our knowledge, that there were no consultations with other accountants regarding auditing or other matters. Regarding significant difficulties, we're happy to say that we encountered no significant difficulties in dealing with management. We did not have any disagreements with management in terms of accounting treatments or audit procedures performed. Next, I'm going to talk about audit responsibilities, and I'll start with management. So management is responsible for the financial statements. They're responsible for presenting the financial statements in accordance with accounting principles generally accepted in the United States of America, so U.S. GAAP. Adopting sound accounting policies, establishing and maintaining internal controls over financial reporting and compliance, and providing us, the auditors, with evidence supporting the amounts and disclosures in the financial statements. Management is also responsible for preventing and detecting fraud. Now, as the auditors, we have responsibilities as well. Our responsibilities are to form and express an opinion about whether the financial statements that have been prepared by management with council oversight are presented fairly in all material respects in accordance with U.S. GAAP. We are also responsible for planning and performing the audit to obtain reasonable but not absolute assurance about whether the financial statements are free of material misstatements. And we need to consider, and we're required to consider, internal control over financial reporting. However, those considerations are solely for the purposes of determining our audit procedures and do not provide any assurance concerning internal control. So now I'll just go look at a brief overview of the financial statements. And what we're looking at here on this slide is the government-wide, essentially, statement of net position, and this is a condensed version. So we have, on the government-wide, is where basically all of the activity of the city is reported. And so it's reported in 3 columns: governmental activities, the business type activities, and total. So in total for the city, we take assets plus deferred outflows of resources minus liabilities minus deferred inflows of resources, and that leaves us with net position. So in total, at June 30, 2021, the city had about $139 million of assets. Add on to that $9.8 million of deferred outflows of resources, which is going to be mainly from pension and OPEB items. And then we're going to subtract $29 million of liabilities and $10 million of deferred inflows, which leaves us with a total net position for the city of $109 million. On the net position, the net investment of capital assets of $71.6 million. That consists of total capital assets minus any outstanding capital-related debt, which the city does not have any outstanding capital-related debt at June 30, 2021. So that number right there basically represents the city's capital assets. There is restricted net position, which is $5.7 million, and that is restricted for capital projects, and the remaining is restricted for, $4.5 million of that is restricted for capital projects, and the remaining is restricted for special projects or other purposes. And then unrestricted net position is $31.6 million for the city at June 30, 2021. The next slide is a government-wide summary condensed statement of activities. Again, so we have we'll go over the governmental activities had $19 million of expenditures and program revenues of $4.9 million. Now that leaves for the governmental activities a net cost of services of $14.1 million. And I'll have you kind of just remember that number there, that net cost of services of $14 million, because I will get to that again in another slide in just a second. So the net cost of services, negative $14 million, but then that's offset by general revenues, which would include taxes, which are your property sales, transient occupancy tax, franchise tax, special assessments, etc. General revenues in the other categories in the governmental activities are $1.3 million. That's going to include investment earnings and gain and loss on sale of property, plus a little bit of miscellaneous income. And then you'll see transfers in the governmental activities was a positive transfer over of $894,000. That came from the business type activities, and that was mainly for overhead allocation and debt service. Business type activities, expenses of $4 million. Program revenues, which are mainly charges for services, of $6.9 million, leads to net cost of services of $2.9 million, so the positive there. And then again, ending the change in net position for business type activities was positive 2.5, and total change in net position for the city as a whole is $6.3 million. Here's a look at the just a condensed balance sheet for the general fund. Assets $16 million against liabilities of $4.4 million leads to total fund balance in the general fund of $12.2 million. The assets consist mainly of $12 million of cash and investments. The main liability in the general fund is advances from other funds for $3 million. And then as far as the breakdowns of fund balance, non-spendable is very minor. Restricted fund balance, $477,000, is restricted by third parties or enabling legislation, and that mainly consists of restrictions for Prop 172 funds and donations. There was no committed fund balance in the general fund, but there was $6.3 million that was assigned by management as delegated by council. $6.3 million is assigned for Measure L fund spending in the future. And then the unassigned fund balance of $5.4 million is the residual after all those other fund balance categories have been accounted for. This is also general fund. Staying with the general fund, this is the condensed income statement essentially. So revenues $18 million. Against expenditures of 11.6, so positive there. Revenues over expenditures $6.3 million, and then there was also net transfers out of $1.7 million, and those are mainly to the city debt service fund and state for $1.3 million, and the state gas tax fund for $900,000, and those transfers out are netted against transfers received for overhead allocations received from other funds. Total change in fund balance positive for the year, $4.5 million. We'll just look at a couple quick financial indicators and key pension, and then some key pension and OPEB information. This first slide here is what we call is a ratio. We call it the net cost of services to tax revenues, and so essentially a ratio below 100% on this is good, and that means that the tax revenues received in the governmental activities are sufficient to cover the net cost of providing services without dipping into net position or fund balance or relying on investment earnings or miscellaneous income. So this year, remember I said before that net cost of services number was a negative $14 million. And so that is actually covered, that net cost of services is covered this year by tax revenues of $15.6 million. So the ratio, and again, below 100% is good. So last year's ratio was about 109%. And now we actually have switched over to the good side on that one, and the ratio is 90% for this year. On this slide, basically this is this is unassigned fund balance to annual expenditures. So this is how strong the general fund's reserves are. So unassigned fund balance, as I mentioned before, is a residual fund balance after removing restricted fund balance, committed, assigned, all that other stuff. So unassigned fund balance in the general fund was $5.4 million this year. or at June 30, 2021. And the annual expenditures in the general fund were $11.7 million. So that ratio, that means you have in unexpended fund balance, you have approximately a half a year worth of expenditures sitting there, which is a healthy reserve there. To put it into perspective, GFOA recommends at least 2 months worth of expenditures in unassigned fund balance, and so that would be about 16-17%. So the city is actually looking really good here. The change in that unassigned fund balance has actually gone from 2.3 million in 2019 to 3.2 million in 2020, and now this year it's actually $5.4 million. So that it has increased by a little over $2 million this year. So just real quick, this slide, this information shows up in the footnotes of the financial statement, and what it is it describes how the city's net pension liability would change if CalPERS were to change the discount rates. So this shows that this is a sensitivity analysis. So that the city's net pension liability at June 30, 2020, which is the measurement date, which is reported this year, was reported at and calculated at 7.15%. So at that discount rate, the miscellaneous plan net pension liability is $484,000, and the safety plan is $597,000. However, if the net pension liability, if the discount rate were to be dropped to 1% to 6.15, the net pension liability for the city overall would jump from $1 million up to $10.9 million. And then in the opposite direction, if that discount rate were to be increased by 1%, then we'd be looking at a jump from $1 million net pension liability to an actual net pension asset of $7 million. So this just kind of shows you some sensitivity to changes in the discount rate. The miscellaneous plan was 98.78% funded, safety plan 98.2%, very similar to last year's funding ratios. And the reason that these funding ratios are so good, as you probably well know, the city made additional PERS contributions in fiscal year 2019 with proceeds from the 2018 PERS certificates of participation, so the bond issuance. The city contributed $11 million additional for the miscellaneous plan and $8.4 million additional that year for the safety plan. And so it's due to those contributions, the city's proportionate share, their funded percentage is basically almost 100%. So similar on this slide, similar for the OPEB liability. The OPEB liability was measured at a discount rate of 7%, and so it hits the city's books at $804,000, which is this middle number here. Now, if that discount rate were to drop 1% to 6%, then the liability would jump up to over $1 million. And in the opposite direction, if the interest rate or if the discount rate were to go up to 8%, we're looking at a net OPEB liability of $608,000. The funded percentage of the OPEB plan at in this year's financial statements is 59.4%, and for comparison, last year that number was 59.2%. So it's a pretty similar funded percentage to last year. All right, now we're at the end. Audit results. So as far as the opinions that we have issued, we issued unmodified opinions to all opinion units. So what that means is that the financial statements are fairly presented in all material respects. The accounting policies have been consistently applied. Estimates used in the financial statements are reasonable, and disclosures are properly reflected. Again, just other results, again, we mentioned earlier, no disagreements with management. We had no material weaknesses or significant deficiencies identified in the internal control over financial reporting or compliance. We are still in the process of completing the federal grant audit, single audit, which is again in progress. So if there is anything on that, we issue that in a separate report. We also noted no accounting issues and no inappropriate activities were noted. So with that concludes my presentation, and we can open it up to questions if you have any.
Okay, so we'll bring it back to council for any questions that you may have. Let's start from the left here with Kyle.
Believe it or not, I have been paying attention. You don't have anything.
Mr. Dillon, I do have a question. Can you elaborate on the long-term liabilities a little bit? What is the impact on our financial position because of that, especially with regard to 2018 per certificate of participation?
Yeah, So those bonds were issued in fiscal 2019, and basically the full amount of the proceeds of those bonds went again split. I think $11 million to miscellaneous and $9 million to the safety plan. So those proceeds went directly to CalPERS, and so what that did was lessen the net pension liability, and so the reason that the city did that is that there's a couple reasons. The first reason being interest rates, right? So those certificates of participation, the interest charge on those ranges about 4.5% to 5%. And essentially, what CalPERS, when they calculate the actuarially determined contribution and when they calculate pension expense and whatnot, they do essentially quote unquote charge interest of 7.15%. So what the city is essentially doing in this case is saving that spread between what the 4.5% to 5% on the debt versus the 7.15% on the CalPERS liability calculation. So what this is also going to do, since the city now has more fiduciary assets, so those are going to be earning interest with CalPERS as well. So that's also going to lower the future annual actuarially determined contributions for both the safety and miscellaneous plans. And then as far as budget wise, the certificates of participation are also on a fixed amortization schedule, so it's easy to plan for those payments for the city.
So we paid the unfunded liability from the certificate of participation, right, in 2018?
Yeah. So those again, as far as like the proceeds from the bonds, and there's a little bit of it got tied up in costs of bond issuance. Very minor percentage of it, but otherwise the net proceeds were paid to CalPERS as employer contributions.
Okay. So after that, is there any unfunded accrued liability? Do you know?
Yeah. So I mentioned. So essentially, when I mentioned kind of earlier when we looked at the funding percentages of the plans. So as of last year, the plan. We'll take miscellaneous plan for example. The miscellaneous plan was 99.99% funded. Now that actually dropped down to 98.78% funded this year, and that could be for myriad reasons. Whether if the investment earnings on CalPERS investments did not do as well as they projected, or if there were changes in experience or changes in assumptions, all these actuarial calculations. But essentially, it does not mean that that this money was paid to CalPERS and the liability just completely disappeared, because you're still going to have ongoing service costs moving forward for current employees and things like that. And again, interest costs on that on the liability, things like that. So, and each year, the city's contributions are based off, the contributions that the city makes are based off of a few-year-old actuarial study. So you're still going to see some movement in this number, but it's the city's definitely, as far as CalPERS is concerned, it has a very high funded level. And that was due to the issuance of those bonds.
Solomon, can you I didn't understand what you said. Was our calculations were based on an 8-year-old actuarial study?
Oh no, I just said a few-year-old.
Oh, all right. Okay, I got it. Okay.
Yeah.
So the rate at which this is going, so probably down the road sometime we'll have another POB, I think, right, to fund the I'm just thinking loud about that.
Well, Solomon, just as an example, this last year, PERS experienced a 21% increase in its portfolio, which will then be reflected in their actuarial to be produced July of this year. So we will have an asset increase in our unfunded liability will go away next year, and we'll have an asset. So by issuing these bonds, we were able to save that 2.5% in the spread, which actually is saving us, I think it was between $300,000 and $450,000 a year in our budget. That was the reason why we did that.
My only concern is we won't have the debt service burden going forward. So that's what I'm trying to understand here. So,
well, we'll have the debt service burden until I believe 2036 when the bonds are paid off.
And we should be doing okay with that then. So,
correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, that makes sense. So one more question maybe for you, Mr. Strand. We have a $3 million loan given for some, is it for assisted living? No, low-income family building, I think, right?
Correct.
So when does that repayment start? Do you know anything? I mean, or we can talk about it later.
Well, we have two $3 million debts that are owed back to us through the successor agency. One we received at $1.3 million this year, and that is directly back into the wastewater fund. There's still some ambiguity on the money we paid back to the state to relieve our tab money so we could start spending it. That's another $3 million that went through. That was a Monte Santos lawsuit. We do have a court order that requires the state to pay us back. But unfortunately, based upon how the calculations were in the successor agency and how the numbers kind of came out, there may be a strong possibility we may not see that $3 million payoff until the end of the bond issuance for the COPs for the tax allocation bonds. So we're still working on that. I know that Cherie has an inquiry into RGS that assists us with filing our paperwork with the successor agency with the county, and we're hoping to get a little bit closer clarification. I know that in the audit, there was a note in there that said that it wasn't going to be paid back until the end. We're still working on whether or not where we're at in that line, whether or not we can get paid back a little sooner, or if just based upon how much cash we had on balance when the RDA dissolved. That's how they kind of got these complicated numbers. And so we're still working on when we're going to get that payback. But when that money comes back, that's actually going to be general fund money that can go into reserves.
Okay. Last question, Ron. Under loans receivable, there is an item for $3 million for AMG Ridgecrest Pacific Associates. So that is for the Downs apartment complex, or?
Yeah. The AMG would be the general fund money, the tab money, and then the solar loan is the one that's coming back now, and that was a loan from the wastewater to the solar, and I think we've gotten back half of that money this year.
Thank you, sir. Yeah, I think financially we are very sound. I mean, that's what I'm getting from the analysis of the financial statement. So good job. Thank you, Mr. Delaney.
Thank you.
Mayor Bruin?
Thank you, sir. So, Corey, Coley, I apologize. Let me just make sure I understand kind of from a fiscal management direction. If I'm correct, as interest rates increase, we should see a decrease in the discount rate in theory, correct? I'm not trying to say hardcore yes, but as the portfolio is performing better, essentially the discount rate would reduce in terms of the cost to the city, or do I have it mixed up backwards?
Yeah, so the discount rate used by the CalPERS actuaries does not have anything to do necessarily with the interest rates that you're seeing on the open market. So this is an actuarially determined rate for them to use their calculation. They have actually, CalPERS has actually been dropping it over the last few years. They do it initially based on like a 30-year horizon, and they used to do it at 7.75%. They've been slowly decreasing it. They're going to decrease it down to 7%. But what that doesn't necessarily have anything to do with the market interest rates. What the market interest rates will have an effect on, as was mentioned earlier, is the return on the city's funds that are with CalPERS.
And Coley, to be fair, is if we assume that we're talking about let's just say $100 billion pot of money, and I'm using figuratives here, is essentially if it's a rising rate environment where their investments are performing more effectively, then it's reasonable that the portfolio to support CalPERS is therefore performing more efficiently. Theoretically, I mean, I understand there's actuarials, and I'm saying, and so that should then theoretically push down the discount rate is.
Well, I mean, it wouldn't actually push that down. So the discount rate is actually voted on by the CalPERS board, and so
no, I don't mean force it. I mean generally in terms of natural flow of process is if the portfolio is returning a better return.
Yes, then that if the portfolio is returning a better return, you will potentially see that in
the discount rate,
especially in reduced contributions in the future, and reduction of pension expense. Yeah,
perfect. And then to simple up some of the pension questions, and I'm just using a very simple approach because, as you know, Solomon's a banker, I'm a credit union. We have similar mindsets in terms of finance, but I'm looking at it essentially. The pension is our great big old overdrawn checking account. We went and took a loan. We made it current. And it can slowly go up or down a little bit depending on the transactions that come out of it, based on how the actuarial performs. Yeah.
It's like you didn't unless the only way to not have that continue to change was if the city had a closed plan and had no more existing retirees or employees in the plan, and then you paid issued bonds and paid them off the case, but you're still going to have things costs involved with that moving forward.
Right, and as the portfolio performs, it could have a very bad performing year, and therefore your net portfolio value might change that increases it, or as Ms. City Manager Strand said, a very good portfolio year, and you may see a reduction in the discount rate.
And those so there's some of the deferred items, deferred inflows or outflows, depending on which direction the investments performed, if they performed better or worse. Those the differences between the expected investment return and the actual return is amortized by CalPERS into their future actuarials over 5 years, so to kind of smooth those out a little bit.
Yeah,
and then my last.
Yeah, Mayor Brewer, one of the things you also have to understand about the discount rate, that as that discount rate is reduced, typically the employer contribution increases. There was a big issue about it this year that PERS, because they had such a good return this last year, that they thought that might trigger a reduction in the discount rate. However, that would have been extremely detrimental to cities because then the employee and the employer contribution on the payroll end would have gone up significantly. Remember, this all has to do with the age of your employees, how many retirees you have. It's a fairly complicated formula when they do these actuarials.
Okay.
It
yeah,
does
that's
help.
what I'm trying to figure out how it moved, but
It does help us quite a bit with the unfunded liability. Like I would assume that when we see our actuarial in July, that we're going to see a credit in our unfunded liability, which gives us a little comfort because then in years where their portfolio doesn't perform as well as it should, then we're not seeing that unfunded liability increasing. It's just reducing our asset down, and we're not seeing that extra payment that we have to make every year. I think this year, I believe it's about an extra $180,000 that we have to come up with our UAL payment for the new.
Okay. And then just for the record, in terms of clarification over reserves, you mentioned about a 2-month reserve kind of being a pacing. We're at about 6 months in terms of review of reserve. Mm-hmm. As an independent person advising cities in their fiscal direction, what is the generally accepted practice as it stands with reserves?
Well, again, every city does it a little differently.
Generally.
Yeah, but so I refer back to what I mentioned earlier was that GFOA is basically kind of has defined as a best practice to have at least 2 months worth of reserves in your general fund, and so in this case, as far as the unassigned fund balance, again, I'm just looking back on the slide, so that about 46% of current year general fund expenditures in unassigned fund balance. Now, the city also did assign $6.3 million or something like that in the general fund as well, and so that was for Measure L expenditures. That's stuff that was decided on by the city to be in that category. But if it weren't decided to be in that category, if it wasn't assigned by management, then that would trickle down into the unassigned category, and then you'd be that ratio would be even higher.
Okay. I was just curious if that 2 months was more of a standard or a minimum.
It's minimum recommended.
Yeah, actually, the State Department of Finance is recommending 6 months.
Yeah,
Thank you. Okay,
so
there you go.
Yeah, every year they put out the health of the city, and one of the categories on that is what is your general fund reserve, and they're recommending 6 months to be able to withstand some recessionary downtimes.
Right, and I know that's been a big focus of our fiscal strategy for the last several years. I just wanted to make sure it was on record that was part of our overall strategy. Thank you. That's all I have.
Thanks, sir. Okay, any other questions from council? Okay, very good. We'll bring it to the floor for public comment. Any public comment on the floor? Go ahead. You come up to the podium, please.
Yes.
It's about what we just discussed.
Budget.
It's about the CAFR budget. Okay. Any public comment from the phones? Okay, seeing none, I believe this ends our presentation. I'd like to thank our finance department and Sharice and the staff and our city manager for such an outstanding result on our audit and our budget. So, if you come out of this with anything, the budget's increased. We got 6 months in our reserves, and CalPERS appears to be stable. So this is pretty outstanding. Each year is better and better. So congratulations on a fine job. Thank you.
Yeah, Sheree, I want to add, echo Scott's sentiments, and there's a reason I don't have any questions is because you are doing such a good job continually. You keep us up to date, and we're always, you keep us sharp on everything. I appreciate it.
I want to say the same thing. Thank you. A big one for you and your department.
Okay. Thank you. All right. We will now move on to public comment of items not on the agenda. Persons wishing to address the council on matters that are within the council's jurisdiction and do not already appear on the agenda may do so at this time. Pursuant to the Brown Act, the City Council may not take action on any item that does not appear on this agenda. Speakers are limited to 5 minutes. The public comment section of the agenda is limited to a total of 1 hour, and each speaker is asked to provide his or her name. So if you would like to, at this time, come up for public comment, you may do so. Oh, I'm sorry. You can go ahead and come up and wait over on this side so you'll be ready. You snuck in there on me. All right, go ahead, sir.
I was ready.
He's not a small guy, though. So
That's for sure. That's for sure. Good evening, council. How you guys doing?
Hey, Sean.
I'm Sean Connolly, wastewater operator and UFCW steward for the city of Ridgecrest. Here to talk a little bit about the results of our 2022 contract openers that have kind of been coming up and hinting that they were coming up, so we had them this past Monday. And sum it up, I guess, it was disappointing, but not surprising. I don't think there was a lot of expectation. But as you guys may know, the last increase to the UFCW employees was back in 2008. So we're going to go ahead and add another year to that tally and just keep it running. Unfortunately, we were basically denied all the requests we made to the city of Ridgecrest. There's one that's maybe a little up in the air about heavy equipment operator pay. We'll see how that goes. I think they've been kicking that around for probably 4 or 5 months or so. But if any of my numbers, we just talked a bunch of numbers, and I'm going to have old information and stuff based on what I can gather and access. So bear with me a little bit. But last year's budget meeting, June 3rd, 2021, I noticed the Measure V budgeted reserves were $3.46 million with an estimated $925,017 to be left over by the end of this fiscal year, those Measure V funds. At that time, there was 18 full-time employees from the police, only 7.4 full-time employees for the streets department. And in that same meeting, it was put forth by the council to use some of those unallocated Measure V funds to go ahead and purchase 2 Tesla packed vehicles. We increased it. I think it started at $60,000 and went up to $180,000. So at the following meeting, it's going to be June 16th, 2021, one of the councilmen suggested using more Measure V money, the reserves, the $3.46 million, and he questioned, why do we not increase the pay for our police, and take it from the streets department? And it was, interesting, but I do understand Measure V is, it's currently, a finite resource and not something you always want to depend on, but I also know that, wastewater has approximately 60 million, rough estimate. I don't have exact numbers or, anything like that. We are a self-funded department, so I imagine with the proper motivation, something could have been done for the UFCW employees. Anything to buy a little good faith with these people. Just to have a little hope, anything. And unfortunately, that motivation was not found. So I've decided to share a little bit of personal information with you guys and hopefully provide a perspective that you can relate to or at least understand where a lot of these guys are coming from, guys and girls. I have 2 children and a wife to provide for, and in order to do so, I work 2 jobs. I work for the city of Ridgecrest, and then on my lunch break, I'll rush off to where I'm needed in town, work at a couple different places, taking care of all kinds of things. And then I rush back to work, Regular shift, I get off at 2:30 in the afternoon, 9 hours, and I go directly back to work until, sometimes 7:30 at night. I'm not terribly proud of that, It's not something I want to do, something I have to do to provide properly for my family. And I'm not the only one in the UFCW employee group. There's quite a few guys, night stocking shelves at Walmart, There's a guy that does, delivers and hauls all kinds of things with his trailer. I mean, just you name it.
Go ahead.
Go ahead. I appreciate the time. Thank you. And I just, it's unfortunate. All I want to do is suggest we all take a good look at the value that retaining good employees provides. We have a large number of members who will be retiring in the next few years, and if we fail to retain young talent now, I believe we will see a decrease in the quality and possibly the amount of services the city provides. Just recently, we had another wastewater employee resign. He moved over to the water district, so our last two guys left for the water district. They're our closest competitor in that department for the local area. They gave out an 8.1% increase this year. It was a 6.1% CPI increase and another 2% for COLA. So it's getting tough. We've had 8 guys leave our department in the last 2.5 years for a department that employs 8 people at full strength. So you can maybe imagine the revolving door that this has created. And it's not the only department that has retention issues. And I know the police have retention issues as well. And I represent the UFCW, though. So last year, the city residents were surveyed. The top priority, even over the police and fire departments, was to escalate our continued work on street sweeping and maintaining our roads, which I believe makes our streets department increasingly valuable. Our Parks and Recreation department taking care of the very fields that our kids, your kids, are playing baseball and softball on, nightly. And I don't think I need to elaborate the issues not only the city would face, but also the Navy if we don't have good qualified people retained by the wastewater department. All I ask is that we take a serious look at the value provided by these UFCW employees, understand that the changing of guard is coming soon. All the longtime city employees will be retiring in the next few years, and if we do not begin to put actions to the words spoken, there may be problems in the future. Thank you, and I appreciate the extra time. Thank you.
Thanks, Sean.
You're very welcome, and thank you for your time. Yes.
I'd like to ask a question, if I may.
Of course.
My last 5-6 months as mayor, you and I sat and we promised that we were going to take care of our employees. We said we were going to find a way to do it, and we said that it is our first responsibility to act as if we were them and try to find a way to make raises happen. It seems to me, in looking at what we saw from the CAFR, that we were able to accomplish many of those things that we promised. Fiscal responsibility for the monies collected and spent. I think at this point in time, we are being, I think negligent is probably a little bit too strong a term, but we are not being responsible to our employees and our future by not doing what we promised, what you and I promised as a finance committee now more than 2 years ago. I think it's important that we do this and look at it, and I promise that I'm not going to make another promise because I'm termed out. So in November, I can't do any more except sit out there and say, this is what we need to be looking at. And I promise you before that, I will do my very best. And I think you can say the same thing, Scott, when you and I went back to what we said we would do a year and a half ago, we need to do.
Yep.
And my thanks.
I would concur because at the beginning, the employees, asked for Stephen to seriously be looking at it, and we did, and we've come up with some plans, and we've come up with some actual positive actions that have increased revenues, in the pockets of employees whether it was through the health insurance changes that was presented and passed by the council, and I can tell you wholeheartedly, this is a primary issue. It's not going to get pushed on the backside. I'm personally going to look further into the wastewater aspect of it and employees. I know work is being done to address this issue. So, I know it's been a long, tough road for the employees. From 2008, it's unacceptable. 100%. Peggy and I said in these meetings, and we heard the employees, come to us and tell us exactly the same story that you shared with us tonight. And it's not acceptable. It hasn't been in these past years. And I think it should be a priority of this council and this city. And as long as I'm sitting here, we're going to continue to make it a priority. And hopefully we'll have some positive changes in this area in the very near future.
Because our staff has been so responsible and found ways to make it better. I appreciate the finance department and our management who have done the things that we asked them to do. And now let's try to see if we can reap the benefits from their tremendous work and savings and what we've done and accomplished as a council and as a city.
Yeah, Councilwoman Breeden, we still have to remember that one of the items we have on our agenda tonight is obviously the fire agreement.
Yeah.
And we're looking at like I explained to Sean, we're looking at a $1.2 million hole that, yes, we could give the employees a raise, but we may be doing furloughs and layoffs in a year or two. So we are doing the responsible thing at this point in time. We're looking at how we are going to fill that gap. I did explain to Sean that, and we have been talking to his union reps, that we are going to be addressing the wastewater issue in this budget because it's time. We're building the plant. We have to have this information for the state revolving fund. That was explained to Sean during our meeting this week, so they understand that is a fix that we are in the process of taking care of. But I agree. We need to pay our employees a livable wage. We're working very diligently trying to fix our budget, fix the holes. Now, obviously, we ended up with a crater that came about with the fire contract, and I think it would be extremely irresponsible to give people, a general overall cost of living raise at this point in time without trying to figure out how we're going to do that.
I know we will.
Chair Hyman, if I may chime in here, just a word of advice. We have gone pretty deeply into a discussion at this point in time. We are in public comment. This item is not on the agenda. So I would caution the council.
My apologies. Thank you.
To have that discussion perhaps at a time when it is agendized.
Well received.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Sean. I think everybody need to hear what you had to say.
Good evening, Council, Mayor. My name is Elise Saunders. This is my husband, Greg Saunders, and we are visiting your beautiful town of Ridgecrest. We are travel bloggers, and I am here in Ridgecrest to create a travel vacation guide for your beautiful area, showcasing all of the things to do, places to stay, places to eat. You guys have amazing food. We've already visited Casey's. So anyways, I just out of respect wanted to let you all know that we're here, and I'm the crazy lady running around your city with a camera taking pictures of everything. We're happy to spend our money in your town. You'll see my husband on the roads. He's a road cyclist. He's either on a red or a black bike. So we blog also about places to road cycle, to hike. Anyway, we just wanted to, out of respect, to let you know that we were here. We think that your town and city is absolutely amazing, and we're excited to share it with a more global audience and bring more tourist dollars and definitely improve your budget there. So thank you so much for having us. We're excited to be here.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much. So have you been to the new Welcoming Center?
I have, yes. I'm excited to go back and try that virtual reality thing that you all have. I hadn't seen that before. With the day that we went, we didn't have time to do that. But yes, went to the Welcome Center, and we've already been able to view several of the is it Petroglyph Park? I think I'm saying that correctly. So I've already been able to stop by your local tea house, and we just arrived last week, and we're here for a month. So we really like to get entrenched into the city's culture and really meet people. And so we're just enjoying our stay so far.
That's fantastic. We're pretty proud of our city, and there is a lot to do here, and a lot in the outdoor arena, from mountain biking behind the hills to road biking, to not even limited to just the immediate city, but you have
Right.
Death Valley, you have you travel north on the 395 corridor, and you have wonderful towns and scenery all the way up to Bishop and Mammoth and June Lakes, and it's a pretty outstanding place. We personally hope you enjoy it, and look forward to maybe you could get back with us with information as to your blog, and so that people could access it.
Absolutely, sure. Well, be happy to.
Fantastic.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other public comment from the floor? Okay, seeing none, we will move to the phones. Caller, go ahead.
Yes, this is Mike Neal. Just turn us on. Are you still in public comment?
We are in public comment.
Okay, you must have started late. Okay. I have a comment to make about the Council's proposed use of the American Republic Recovery Plan funds. I addressed this a while back. I sent every single one of you a copy of the Treasury's guidance on the use of these funds. There's 44 pages in there. I didn't see one single paragraph about spending those funds on parks. Now, I've already told you that I believe this to be fraudulent, that I have turned a complaint in to the Treasury Department on this proposed use of these monies. And I tried to point out, and I'll try again, to point out that each one of you has an obligation to perform your duties in an ethical fashion. And I challenge you to prove to the public that your proposed use of these millions of dollars improving parks instead of finding ways to help the damaged businesses, the damaged individuals, the kind of things that are called out in the Department of Treasury guidance is the way to use these funds. I am having serious problems figuring out how in the world you can justify this kind of use of the money, and I've invited every one of you to explain it to me and show me where in the guidance anything close to spending money on parks exists. If you can't, then I'm going to have to continue pointing out that this is apparently going to be fraudulent use of government funds. So if you don't like me calling you all a bunch of frauds for proposing to use the money in this fashion, then just prove your point. That's all you have to do. Otherwise, I'll call it like it is. That's all.
Yeah, hey, Mike. This is Kyle. So I don't think we're allowed to go into long discussion here because it's not on the agenda, but I have your answer. Kind of like when you came up here last time and you said, hey, I'm going to go back to the state and I'm going to question this. And I said, you should do that. And I still encourage you to do that. That's always sound. I recommend that to the public at all. If anytime anybody thinks they don't like what's going on up here, they should definitely always check in and, be a watchdog. But I don't know. Martin, am I allowed to go into much detail here?
Oh.
No, is that the answer?
Councilman Blake, I think that there is no harm in simply responding to the speaker and citing some sections and leaving it up to him to either contact staff to receive a copy of it or have him do his own homework and realize that parks are included in eligible uses. But please go ahead and cite some code sections to the gentleman.
Well, man, if he's still watching, I think he hung up. Mike, I think you hung up. That's too bad. I think you sent a 44-page document, but the document we have is much more extensive. The staff actually did a very good job because we quizzed. Mike, I don't know if you were watching or paying attention at the beginning of when we started talking about these funds. We, the council, actually asked quite extensively of our staff, Cherie and the city manager, hey, could you guys look into how we can use these funds? What can we do? What can we do over and over and over and over? And so they went off and did a deep amount of research and communication with the state. And I think it's, at least the last documentation that I see, investment in parks, public plazas, and other public outdoor recreation spaces may be responsive to the needs of disproportionately impacted communities by promoting healthier living environments. And I could actually count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, at least 7, just in a couple of paragraphs, areas that highlight where we can and have chosen to spend this money appropriately.
And just for the record, that would be the final rule, section 35.6.
35.6. Thank you, Martin. Just so you know, it's out there, and I think you can, if you wish, contact the staff for that. It's a long document, though. I'm told, right, Shuri? It's pretty big, but I think you're probably okay with that.
About 370 pages.
370 pages.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, no, please do, Mike. Question away. Thank you.
Any other comments?
Can I say? Yes. I'm sorry. I'm going to have to say something here, and if I'm wrong, correct me before I get further into this, okay? It seems to me one of the ways to work together is to work together. And to threaten us and tell us that the election's coming up and to tell us that you're going to make life difficult for this council, you know what? The way to make life better for the whole entire city is to say, Mr. Neal, you want to make those kind of comments, make them. But understand, when you make comments that have no basis in fact, and you admit that you only looked at a few pages, then look at the whole thing and find answers, because the answers are there. And had you asked us, instead of threatening us, we could have done it the right way where you would have had all the answers you want. But it seems inappropriate to me to tell somebody, I'm going to make sure that the community knows that you aren't doing this right, rather than saying, people, how can we make this happen together? And this is a good thing for the community, and we're going to do it. And it is the right way to do it, because we have guidance on what can be done and cannot be done. So thank you.
Thank you. Okay, hearing no further comments, we will see if we have any other public comment on the phone. Seeing none, we will now move on to the council council announcements. We'll start with Mayor Bruin.
I don't have any other council announcements other than the weather in Washington, D.C. was beautiful.
Fantastic. We appreciate your time and effort there. Are you reading? Nope. Good. Any other further comments? Okay. All right, moving on to the consent agenda. Item number 2 on the agenda, proposed action to approve draft minutes of the Ridgecrest City Council regular meeting dated February 16th, 2022.
So moved.
Second.
Mayor Bruin.
Aye.
Mr. Blades.
Aye.
Mr. Rajaratnam.
Aye.
Mr. Heyman.
Aye.
Ms. Breeden.
Aye.
5 ayes, motion carries.
Okay, moving on to item number 3. This will be a public hearing and approval of a resolution of the City of Ridgecrest City Council to consider public comments and establish a finding for unmet needs that are reasonable to meet with the public transportation system for fiscal year 2022 and 2023. This will be presented by Transit Supervisor Chris Smith. So at this time, we will open the public hearing.
Hi, Mr. Smith.
I'm sorry.
What happened?
You're filling in?
I know I look like Brad Pitt, like Mr. Smith, so I got it. Thank you for the compliment.
Okay, so we'll begin with opening the public hearing. And with that, we will leave it to you.
My name is Mr. Reed. Anyway, so unfortunately, Chris had a family emergency, couldn't make it tonight, so I'm here in his stead. So we have a public hearing every year, so anybody that's had issues with our transit authority or anything related to transit can be brought up in a public hearing where council can hear, staff can hear, and then we can decide whether it is truly an unmet need or if it is, what's the verbiage they use? If they include a minor operational improvement, or if, God, I had the definition with my finger on it, and you made me laugh and called me Mr. Smith, and I took my finger off of it. Oh, gosh.
What are you looking for?
I'm looking for there's a definition. There's a huge definition that I was set to read.
It's in the second whereas of the resolution.
Oh, there you go. I didn't even think to look at the resolution. I was looking at the staff report. So the definition of the term unmet needs, as per Kerncog resolution, is as follows: an unmet transit need exists in. Who is that?
One of the WebEx.
Oh. So the can somebody mute me, please? Yeah, it's weird to hear myself talk after I talk.
We're good.
Okay. So unmet transit needs exist if an individual of any age or physical condition is unable to transport himself or herself due to deficiencies in the existing transportation system. Excluded in these are the requests for minor operational improvements, those improvements funded and scheduled for implementation in the following year, and the term reasonable to meet is defined as operational feasibility. The requested improvement must be safe to operate, and there must be an adequate roadways for transit vehicles, duplication of service. The proposed service shall not duplicate other transit services, and the timing in the proposed service shall be in the response to an existing rather than a future need. And lastly, the service must meet the legally required fare box ratio with fares close to fares of similar service. So essentially what we're here today is we're here to hear if we have any unmet needs. It is the position of staff right now, although there are always wants and we're always trying to make things better, we feel we do not have any unmet needs in which people are not able to access the transit system. And with that, I'm open for any questions.
Okay, we'll bring it back to the council for discussion. Any questions from the council?
I don't. This was put before the public, and the public had the opportunity to say, do we have any unmet needs? I think it was about 30 days ago, correct?
Yes, it was notified twice, right? Yes. 15 days apart or 30 days apart? I forget what that rule.
10 days.
10 days apart. See, I was wrong.
That's the way the papers run.
All right.
Good thing Rick is here.
And so, because nobody responded with any unmet needs,
correct.
Then we had our opportunity to look at it and say, so the public already thinks that the transportation system is working to their best benefit.
Well, we do have to wait and see when he opens it up to public comment. There could be some here
but I
on
would
the
say
phone,
that from
yes.
all the opportunities they had. Okay,
Mm-hmm. But they did have, like you said, they had ample notice, and we do this every year. It's required in order for us to receive our TDA portion of funds that we get from Kerncog. So.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I've never heard any complaints. Well, that's not true. Let me stop.
About the city ever? Me either.
I've never. I I have not heard of locally any unmet needs to convey, but I have heard of unmet needs outside of the area. I know we can't really affect that change, but this is it's something for me to bring up at KernCog, and I guess I'm just expressing that I know that we don't always speak we represent the citizens of Ridgecrest. We take that extremely seriously, but I also try to, when I can, represent people outside the valley who don't always have, they don't always get the same attention as the people within the city do. And so maybe, Travis, if you go with me to the next KernCog meeting, we can remember to talk to them about that. You don't have to take a note. I already got it. Boom, up here.
Mental note. Got it.
Still Trav.
Yeah, remember the county has to do the same unmet needs meeting as we do. So we would hope that some of these issues that are outside of our jurisdiction or our control would be brought up during their meeting.
Yeah, you're spot on as usual, Ron. I hear from people from Randsburg, Kernville, Lake Isabel. I hear from those types of areas, and they don't always feel like they have. I'm not complaining. I'm just bringing it up so that if anybody's watching, they realize that we're paying attention to everybody. We, as a council, I know you guys do too. I don't mean to speak for you, but I know we all do.
But I can tell you from a staff's perspective, while we're required to do this meeting every year to public notice it, have a hearing where they can come down and either call in or walk in to give their complaints, I will say that staff is always receptive to issues that happen throughout the year, and we make micro adjustments all the time.
That's awesome.
Yeah. That is one thing. I can't echo that enough. Chris is always making changes, and his staff are always trying to do stuff to go out of their way to provide for the people that call in and need service. So.
Oh, yeah. I see the comments all over. They're even on it. You guys bend over backwards. He does.
Yeah, one of the reasons why you probably don't see a lot of people in the room is because we address these issues as they come along. I mean, we're not a perfect system because there's people's needs are so varied that you can't accommodate everybody, but we do accommodate as many people as we possibly can within our budget that we have. So just to kind of put that out there.
Thank you. That's all I got. Scott.
Councilman Rajaratnam.
One quick question. So our public transportation system, they did not get any complaints or anything, right? So
I mean, we didn't get any complaints as regards to an unmet need. We have various complaints that come in over the year. We've had people complain that because they couldn't fit their bike on the rack we had. We've had people complain because of how many bags they can't bring on the bus. We've had people complain that they got kicked off because they were bleeding on the bus. So we've had some general complaints
but
like
not
that.
Not with regard to unmet needs.
Not with regard to unmet needs. And anytime somebody does have a complaint, we take them very seriously and we try to rectify the situation as quick as we can, whether it's something we need to make a little policy change. We had an issue one time with sliding of a wheelchair on a lift that we didn't like. So within that day, we purchased different wheelchair stops to make sure that we could guarantee we weren't going to have any rolling on the platform. So we try to act as swiftly to make sure that if anything comes up in the future, it's taken care of already.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Smith. No, sorry, Mr. Reed.
Councilwoman Breeden. Mayor Bruin.
I have no questions.
Okay. I have none, so we will move to taking public comment. Do we have any public comment from the floor? Okay, seeing none, we'll move to the phone lines. Caller, go ahead. Caller, go ahead. Any other public comment? Okay. If we do receive some further public comment on the lines, we will take it. But we will be closing the hearing here in just a minute. So, all right. I'll take it that we don't have any further public comment. So at this point, we will close the public hearing, and we'll move it for a vote.
Oh, there they are.
Oh, hang on. We're going to backtrack back to the public comment.
Reopen the public hearing, please.
Okay, so we will reopen the public hearing, and we will go back to the public comment to try to take a call that maybe came through.
There we go.
Hello?
Caller, go ahead.
Hi. Is this still public comment with respect to the transportation?
Yes.
It is. Oh, thank you very much. I appreciate the time tonight, gentlemen and ladies. This is Kathy Brown calling in. I have a question. It's also an observation. Out in Inyo Kern, there's a transportation hub that was established, I think about 5 or 6, 7 years ago. And the city of Ridgecrest owns that property out there. It's on the other side of Bernardino's restaurant off the highway there, 178. I think it's on 2nd Street. And I would like someone to go out there and drive in there because there's no signs up at all that identify that as our hub transportation center. You don't know what bus you would need to take or anything, and it needs to really be checked into. Now, there is a sign posted for one bus outside the Chevron station there on the highway, a proper, sign that says bus number. I think it's 223 or whatever. That one, I think, would take you to Lancaster. But that hub was supposed to be the center so that when you went over there, you could take the bus up to Bishop or to Kern River Valley, or, like I said, south to Palmdale or Mojave and make connections to go to Bakersfield. And I'd like someone to let me know if the signs are going to be put up pretty soon, because it's really concerning for people if they're trying to find a bus that goes where they won't know. They really won't know, and it really looks bad out there. Is this the right department that would handle that?
Yes, ma'am, it sure is. My name's Travis Reed, and I will speak with the transit coordinator tomorrow about it, and I will see. We have multiple agencies that use the hub, so we'll have to do some research for you into how they number their buses, how they would want a sign to read, but we can definitely do something to actually label that this is the transit hub. And that what Ridgecrest bus comes out there, what the line is, where it starts from, where it goes to. That is definitely something.
I can tell you right now that the bus starts, I believe, at Walmart and it goes to City Hall there Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, and always comes down that highway and takes people out, to the other locations. The former manager of Ridgecrest, Mr. Spears, I believe, was the one. He did a really good job on acquiring that land for the city, if I remember right. It's been a while, and to create that transportation hub. And to my knowledge, City of Ridgecrest does own it. It also, it's really kind of a crazy place. If you drive in there, at one point there were so many weeds you didn't even know where you were. But there's like a bathroom there, and it's kind of like it's. I don't know if it's unlocked or locked, and there's a little seat, but there's nowhere. Like I said, I really appreciate you guys going out there and getting those bus signs up so that a person knows where to go. It's really important.
Absolutely, that's not a problem. And the bathrooms there are open. I forget the exact times that they open and lock them, but they're open. I'm gonna guess. Don't quote me on this, but I think it's 8 to 6. Is that the bathroom is open? But we do
now,
lock them in the evening.
Oh, okay. Okay, I would say I didn't see a sign there. Just observing the whole area, and it looks it doesn't look too good there, the whole area. And it's representing, our hub for our community in the valley here, and I think it just needs some eyes to look at. I'll be honest with you, I meant to call you guys on this like probably 2-3 years ago, but I've had other things happen to me where I couldn't get around and look, but I've been checking it because I had to take a bus. I hadn't taken a bus in 30 years. I had to go to Lancaster to pick up a brand new car, and I couldn't have my 9-year-old friends drive me down there. So I said, well, I'm going to take the bus. So I took the local bus from Inyokern, and it was an experience, I will tell you. And then transferring from Mojave out by Carl's Jr. there, and then going down to Lancaster, pick up my brand new car. So that was a real experience, I will tell you. But anyway, yeah, I'm really glad that you'll go out there and check it out. Really appreciate your time and your effort.
I really appreciate you calling in and letting us know.
Yeah, I was going to take pictures and send them to you, but I thought, well, I'll just call in tonight. I'm sorry I didn't hear about the transportation thing because, you know, I'm way out here and I just didn't hear about it, and that's my fault. But I appreciate your time, and I'm sure we'll get it corrected and make it a real good center. Sounds good.
Thank you again.
Thank you very much. You're welcome. Have a good evening.
Thank you, Kathy.
Thank you. You're welcome. Bye-bye.
Okay, any other public comments on the phones? Okay, seeing none, we will close the public hearing and we will bring it back to the council for a vote.
Okay, hang on real quick. Martin, do we have to determine if this is minor in nature based on the definitions? Since there was a complaint that came in, based on what I've read on it, I think the council has to decide if it's minor in nature, that it's a request for a minor operational improvement.
Yes, that is correct. I thought that spoke for itself, but yes.
Okay. I didn't know if we had to say something about it. I just didn't want to overjump and step our bounds.
Okay.
No, valid question. That will be part of the.
We're good.
Motion. If a motion is put forward to adopt the resolution, then that would be implicit in it.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you for clarifying that. And at this time, then we'll bring it to the council for a vote.
Yeah, I'd like to move that we approve the resolution.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Mayor Bruin.
Aye.
Mr. Blades.
Aye.
Mr. Rajaratnam.
Aye.
Mr. Heyman.
Aye.
Ms. Braden.
Aye.
5 ayes, motion carries.
Thank you,
Council.
Travis Reed.
We're going to have the same problem with the next one.
Hope you are not Wagner. Putting another hand. Narissa.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I'm going to be Narissa tonight.
Oh. Travis can be Narissa.
He probably couldn't answer your question.
Okay, moving on to item number 4. Conduct a public hearing and adopt a resolution recommending Community Development Block Grant CARES Act DDBG-CB3 funding use in the amount of $67,219.80 and project description to the Kern County Board of Supervisors for the City of Ridgecrest. This will be presented by Rika. And at this time, we will open the public hearing and proceed with the staff report.
Okay, I'm going to take over for Narissa tonight. She's been home ill all this week, so I've been working with her on the project, so I should be able to answer any questions that you have, but this is a very simple one nonetheless. Staff actually brought this project to council on October 20th for a public hearing and approval of the project. At that time, the council approved the entire funds to be used on the bipolar ionization air filtration system. The entire funds in the amount of $67,219 was put towards that project. Narissa and I forwarded the application to the Board of Supervisors for approval. Unfortunately, the county informed us after our submission of the application that we are not able to use the funds as they were approved due to the following regulation, which excludes the use of CDBG funds on buildings or portions thereof used for general conduct of government business. So what that meant was we were going to use the funds on the Senior Center, the Kerr-McGee Center, and City Hall. Unfortunately, City Hall does not qualify. So we went back to the drawing board, and we have now decided we got a new bid for the bipolar ionization project, and it's just going to be for the Kerr-McGee Center and the Senior Center. So it leaves the City Hall off. And that new bid came in at $34,876. So we were trying to figure out what to do with the remainder of the funds. And when we were sitting at a staff meeting, Chief came up with the idea of using it to purchase PPE for the police department. So it's a rather large sum left, but what we're going to do is we're asking tonight that we could use the approximate leftover of $32,343.80 to purchase PPE for the police department. We did rewrite the application. It's in the packet. We're hoping that if we forward it to the Board of Supervisors, they'll accept it this time. The funds can be used until the end of 2024, so we are not going to purchase it all at once. We're afraid that it, might dry rot or go bad, expire, whatever the case may be. So it will probably be in increments, but that's where we're at right now. So that's the project that we suggest. But as part of the public hearing, we do need to see if the public has anything else that they would like to use it on, and maybe suggest it and consider it as part of the hearing. And I have not received any other comments on it or suggestions for a project myself as for the city clerk. So unless we hear some tonight, we can consider the one we've put before you.
Okay, thank you very much. We'll bring it back to the council for discussion. Any comments or discussion?
No, I'm glad to hear that it's in increments. I originally thought, man, $30K in PPE, boy, where are you guys even going to put that? But yeah.
Well, with the inflated costs, it's not as much as you think.
Oh yeah, true.
I did have the same, and you answered it already, but as far as like latex gloves and the latex or the diaphragms of masks and their shelf life, and anybody's used those gloves, and if they have been sitting around for too terribly long, they start to become brittle. But I was wondering too about that time limit for the expenditures, but or spending it would be. So I like the idea of doing it in increments and trying to preserve the shelf life as long as possible.
If I may chime in, Chair Hyman, on reading of the resolution, it just I wanted to bring the council's attention that the even though there's a bid for the project, for the filter project, the total amount, $67,219.80, is allocated for both projects, which allows for potential change order or some form of a increase in the filter project if necessary. So there is some flexibility as between those two amounts, at least as the resolution is written right now.
And as far as the use of the PPE for the police department, you said this is open to discussion for other uses of it?
Both of them are. The filtration project also.
Okay, and so would the PPE equipment be also available to the city side of?
That I'm not sure of. The way the application is written is the justification is for the police department.
Okay.
So I don't know if it would be used by the city as well.
Okay.
And more so the need is for the police department than the administrative staff, I think.
Correct. Yeah, and even with coronavirus ramping down, the police department always needs gloves. They're not going to be unused. Sure. So it's still the funds are allocated for response to COVID, and that's what we're going to purchase it under. But they can use them even if COVID, isn't around.
Well, we're not guaranteed the future either, and we all know that when there's a national or state or global demand on items, they can become hard to get at the initial onset of the crisis. And so it's probably a good idea to have ample PPE gear for our primary responders. So
agreed.
I think in that end, it's a good idea from my perspective. Any other comments from council?
I do have. This is a new application we are sending, Rika.
Yes, we rewrote it to justify
just
the PPE.
Housekeeping.
Yes, sir.
If you go to the project cost estimate.
What page are you on, sir?
They're not numbers. Project cost estimate. You don't have the page number. We have October 2021 date there, so maybe we should change it to current date.
Yes, I will do that. Thank you.
Thank you.
If that's the only one, we did good.
We're doing good. Okay, any other comments from the council or Mayor Bruin?
No, I'm fine. I'm
Okay.
just listening along and laughing quietly in my head.
Thank you. Okay, we'll move to taking public comment. Any public comment from the floor? Seeing none, we'll move to the phone lines. Any public comment from the phones? There are no public comments from the phones. Okay, so at this point, we will close the public hearing and we'll bring it back to the council for a vote.
I'd like to move we adopt the resolution.
Second.
Mayor Bruin.
Aye.
Mr. Blades.
Aye.
Mr. Rajaratnam.
Aye.
Mr. Heyman.
Aye.
Ms. Breeden.
Aye.
5 ayes, motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
How long before we'll hear anything back from the county?
They have to get our report, our application and our resolution, and then they have to schedule on their board of supervisors. So I'd imagine at least a month by the time they get it on their agenda and it's heard. At bare minimum, 30 days, I'd say, before we hear anything.
Okay, thank you. Okay, moving on to item number 5. This is discussion action items. Item number 5 is fire contract review. This is a discussion only, no vote, and this will be presented by City Manager Ron Stratton.
Yes, as you know, during our last meeting on this topic, when the Fire Protection Service Agreement was approved, we had about a 20-30 minute lapse in the YouTube video at the time. And so we were concerned that we might have had people that wanted to discuss the new fire service agreement. And so it was decided at the time to bring this back for just a limited sense of, does council or the community have additional questions regarding the fire contract? I know I have members of the fire department here that are available to answer any questions, but we felt it was just prudent to be able to bring it back, or at least to give the public, another opportunity to ask any clarifying questions regarding this topic. So with that, I would entertain any questions from council if you have any, or otherwise open it up to the public. And if there's no public comment, then we'll just move forward.
Thank you, sir. So we'll bring back to the council any comments or questions from the council.
I had last time I had a lot of questions last time. So what I'll try to do is just skim across the top. I'm going to try to remember off the top of my head the ones that I brought up last time, just so that. The first one I think I was asking you, Mr. Strand, was, is there ever a price point? Well, the public is getting the disservice that they didn't get the preface last time. The last time we went in at length and detail of validating the cost, right? Why we're spending this money, why the city council believes it's so important, why it's important for the safety of the city. And one of those was, we were, how often it is you guys have to respond to 2 calls at once. I think that's important because one item of discussion was we could possibly, it's not the way any of us would like to go, but there's a possibility of closing down one station. Nobody likes that option or that even the idea of bringing it up,
right?
But it's worth talking about.
Yeah, I think you're not only are you looking at if they have to respond to more than one incident at a time. Really, the big issue here is going to be the speed and weight of response to ongoing incidents. In other words, right now you have 2 primary stations within the city, and you have a station in Randsburg, another in Inyukern, and they float the equipment around based upon where their need is at. If you close a station, now you've lost half of your response capability within the town. And now instead of if you have a call on the south end of town up in College Heights, but you're responding from COSO by the post office, it's going to take longer for your equipment to get there. And then if you have a fire that is significant, to be able to get enough resources there, you're now going to have to then bring equipment from Randsburg or Inyukern in to be able to help respond to that. So your delay in being able to effectively fight that fire is going to be substantially compromised. So yes, they do respond to almost daily, more than one incident at a time. But the other big issue is, can they get enough equipment and manpower there to be able to respond to some of these calls in an effective way? And I can let the fire department, let the deputy chief expand on that a little bit.
Yeah, thank you for being here, sir.
Absolutely. It's my pleasure. Good evening, Council. Deputy Chief Zachary Wells. I have Division Chief Billy Steers and Battalion Chief Mason Chris with me today. And just to reiterate and kind of expand off of Manager Strand's point, is we not only have multiple incidents during a day, we average 9 to 10 in the city of Ridgecrest, but those individual incidents sometimes and a lot of times require more than one apparatus, whether it's a engine, patrol, battalion chief, chief officer rig, ambulances. So it's something that we need to take into consideration. What we call a reinforced structure fire, a working structure fire. We initially dispatch 5 engines, a safety officer, and a battalion chief, a chief officer, to every working structure fire. And so those are incidents that when we're looking at providing services to the city of Ridgecrest, we have to think beyond just the single incident itself. What are the critical tasks? What are the jobs required of our firefighters to engage on scene in order to mitigate the emergency at hand?
Thank you, sir. And so one of the other things that I don't know if everybody got to watch it, but I will bring it back up now. That is, I wasn't aware of the high, what's the correct term, level or quantity of qualifications that you guys have to go through. And the reason that's pertinent to this conversation is because I brought up to the city manager, again, not something we'd ever want to do, but it's worth it, but the public needs to, would probably want to ask these questions. Could we ever go to something like a volunteer fire department? And when I asked that question, you were like, well, that's almost untenable. And you explained why that is, because of the high level. There's a very high level of qualifications that you guys have to go through. Would you mind talking to that just real quick? I'm not trying to put you completely on the spot here, but.
Yeah, it's not a problem. The fire service of today is a lot different than the fire service 30 years ago. In the state of California, too, we pride ourselves in being a professional fire service organization. And many of our firefighters specialize in many different aspects. We consider ourselves an all-risk, all-hazard fire department, and we respond to everything from structure fires, commercial structure fires, residential structure fires. On the rescue side, we have urban search and rescue. So with the earthquake that we had in 2019, we have specialized trained individuals in confined space rescue, trench rescue. On the wildland side, I'll let Chief Steers talk about. There's many different facets when we get into the wildland arena. And then, sorry, real quick, on the EMS side, we have firefighters trained. Every firefighter's trained to the EMT level. And in our department, we're starting to train. We have 7 firefighters going through paramedic school at this time to be able to provide services at an ALS level.
Yeah, and in addition to that, Division Chief Steers, in addition with the wildland responses, there's a significant more training that goes along with that, those types of qualifications. We don't see the large wildland fires here, but the deserts do have significant amount of wildland danger. When it comes to wind-driven fires, we have plenty of wind here. We have plenty of dry summers, so that potential in a high grass year is always still here in the outskirts and around the communities of Ridgecrest. And so that threat is always present, where you need a large amount of resources, and where the volunteer fire departments, it's harder to keep those qualifications up with the continued need for training throughout the year and the cost of that to keep a volunteer fire department up.
Yeah, thank you, sir. Yeah, I don't want the public to think that we, the council or the city staff, is trying to scare anybody into a certain position here. These are just facts, facts that are beside people's feelings. That needs to be pointed out. It is an emotional feeling to think, "Whoa, boy, you guys are putting my feet to the fire here, and you're going to cost us extra money." That's very true, but it doesn't negate the facts that we have a very serious threat of not being able to respond to certain issues. And after I sat down, and these aren't arbitrary facts. This is something that, besides what the county provided us, the city manager Strand went out and had analysis done, because we asked those hard questions, the very not nice questions to him in meetings. I know I certainly did. When can we do this? When can we do that? What do you mean? How much is this going to cost, Ron? When can we change this? When can we have our own fire department? And he had an answer for every single one of those questions. So the public, I think, just needs to hear that the council's asked those hard questions. We don't always. I'm just going to reiterate: we don't always get to be nice and say the nice things. And this just happens to be one of those topics. We have a very serious and real situation, and that we appreciate you guys being here. I got to say. At least I haven't heard as much over email or text, but I could say on social media, people were overwhelmingly very supportive of you guys, and usually are. You guys provide great service, and I saw a few comments of, they've saved my dad's life, things like that. So thank you for that. I can't remember the rest of my questions at this time. One of them was, at what point what's the price point for us to have our own fire station, where then we're trying to steal county employees?
It's greater than $3.6 million on what we're currently paying. And having our own fire department, we would still have to have our own management. We would still have to have our mutual aid agreement. So when you look at remaining with Kern County Fire, there's much more benefits. We are part of a regional department. If we have something significant out here like we had with the fire or with the earthquakes, we had a significant number of units that came from Kern County as well as everywhere else. And so just the benefit right now and the cost that we get at this point in time, even still at $3.6 million, is still a good deal.
I couldn't agree more. Again, after looking at your analysis, it was good. If anybody didn't see it, I hope that portion, at least some of that, was up on YouTube, because it was you broke down a good cost analysis of what we're paying and then what we're going to have to pay, but then how much of a good deal we were getting. So again, kudos to the county. And that's all I can remember right now. I'm sure I'll have more in a bit. I'm sorry, I'd give you guys a chance.
I don't have any.
I asked mine last time. Thank you.
Yeah. Mayor Burden?
I just want to reiterate thanks to Kyle for again asking questions. We'd spent a lot of months talking this through on the city org side and other sides, and just want to reiterate for the public that none of these decisions were reached easily, but these are the long-term decisions that are necessary for public safety. So thanks for reiterating some of those questions, Kyle.
Thank you, Mayor Bruin. So I just want to add, we touched base on just a little bit at the last council meeting when you were here. As far as a community service, 62%, I believe, of the calls are EMS calls that the fire department responds to. The level of expertise that the fire department brings to a call is second to none. And so when that service is provided, that patient or that individual is not billed for that fee. And so it's a true service to this community. And whereas, if ambulance or EMSs are, there's costs accrued. And so I just wanted to reiterate that it is a tremendous service that's provided to the community through the fire department and the level of care that you do bring. And in 62% of the cases or calls that you are doing, which is the meat and potato part of what you do. I think the average in the country is 65%. So we're right in, that same ballpark. But anyway, so I just want to make that clear. But thank you, guys.
Well, thank you, and we're very proud to be part of this community, and we've been partners for many years, and we look forward to expanding on that relationship over the next decade.
Yep. Any other public or comments from the?
Just one more comment. In speaking with the battalion chief a little while ago, they did state that our calls for service are up 12% this year.
Up 12%.
Up 12%. So we're seeing an increase in fire demand, not a decrease.
Yeah.
I think we have a caller.
Yeah. So if there's no further comments from the council, we will move to public comment, so we'll start with the floor. Any public comment from the floor? Seeing none, we will move to the phones. Caller, go ahead.
Yes, this is Mike Neal, and I'll ask a question, and I will stay on the line if there are responses. So we're looking at, as I recall, the numbers basically are a 600 to 700% increase in the cost to Ridgecrest or fire service. Am I correct in that?
No, you're incorrect. Our cost is going up from our fire fund contribution that we collect in city taxes is $2.1 million. The city was already contributing in excess of $274,000, so we're looking at an increase of about $1.2 million on top of that. So it's not a 600% increase in that regard. It's a 600% increase over what we're paying extra, but it's not the overall bill.
Okay. Okay, I won't go back over that other than to say that what we're looking at is a very large increase in the cost to Ridgecrest citizens. Now, having dealt with the city politics for many years and seeing things proposed to have the cost increase and the justifications given for that, just like to say first off that this is kind of thing that I support as a part of the governmental functions is fire protection, police, providing roads, and so forth, as opposed to many other things being spent by governments that I think are out of line. Given that, when we have such a large increase in cost to be passed on to us by the county, I'm wondering, did anybody at any time question the county and ask them, well, before you propose such a large cost increase to us, have you trimmed the fat off of your own budget? Is this as much as you have to charge us? Are there other areas the county could economize in so that we don't have to pass this kind of cost on to our citizens? Because, face up to it, we've already had the terms thrown out, which basically means we're going to tax you more to pay for this, and it's going to take at least another 0.25% sales tax to fund this. So did anybody at any time pose those kind of questions to the county?
Yeah. Hey, Mike. This is Kyle. That is a good and valid question. I can't speak with the rest of the council, but I actually asked the city manager that exact question, and he did. In fact, it was actually a whole chain of events where the city manager went back in conjunction with some of the other city managers, I believe, to question the county and make sure that they were digging through this. And I think it was and there's a reason why. I think this has actually been going on for quite a while. There's been a lot of back and forth, and I appreciate. I mean this genuinely. I can't say enough, City Manager Strand. I appreciate deeply how much you went back and questioned and made sure to get us, because I don't think you just helped Ridgecrest. You helped many other cities in Kern County as well.
Yeah, we did our due diligence. We did hire a consulting firm that specializes in fire studies, and through that, we were able to come up with the conclusion. I know that in 2018, the county had a report back that discussed the deficiencies of the fire department, discussed their overtime, their staffing levels. So I know the county for the last several years has been looking internally on how to right the ship of their own department. I know that they still have issues that they have with, what they pay their firefighters, what their staffing levels are. But when you look at what our part of our cost of having 2 fire stations within our community, we did take a very strong look at that. I know we did get a discount as part of the cost, with them considering this, being more of a strategic area. So we did get a 15% discount in that area. And so we did take a very close look at it. And we had well over a year to be able to work our way through in conversations with the county. So I'm comfortable with the due diligence that the city of Ridgecrest, as well as the other contract cities, did over that period of time in working with the fire chief and the CAO and the CO of the county to make sure that we all understood why this increase was here. I know they're phasing it in over 6 years instead of 1 year, Still, the end result's the same. It's still a significant deficit to our budget, but I do know that the county did allow us time to be able to, discuss with them further, their cost allocation methodology and everything. So we did go through a lot on it. So.
Okay, one more question slash comment. Given that we have the 6 years, I had forgotten that particular point, and I think I'd like to broaden the brush here. We basically just talked about costs within the /fire department. What I was addressing was overall costs and overall spending by the county. And if I were on the council, I would want to be able to show to the people that I represent a bucket list of things that I think that the county doesn't need to spend so much money on, that they could save money by either find ways to economize or cut spending on things not anywhere near as necessary as fire protection, which police and fire protection I suspect we all put right at the top of the list. And given you have 6 years, you can provide your constituents ways to communicate to the county that they want cuts. They want cuts in various things where they don't think the funds are being used for things anywhere near as important, and they need to cut these so that we don't have to, keep paying more and more and more and more in this glorious state of taxation in California, and let your citizens work on their county board of supervisors over the next few years, because it doesn't have to be a fixed thing. It doesn't have to go up to the maximum amount at the end of the 5 or 6 years. That could all change, but the information needs to be made available, and the accountability by the county needs to be had.
Mr. Neal, I think that's already been done. The county had a consulting firm in 2018 conduct a fire study on the Kern County Fire Department. That is a public record that is on the county fire department's webpage, that you can access that and review it. I don't think that cutting the Kern County Fire Department is going to save us any money. I still think that the ultimate goal for us as a community is to have an effective fire department that can respond to our needs with equipment that works. And I think under your theory, if we cut the fire department down to nothing, it just basically
you're not listening. I didn't say anything like that.
It accomplishes the same thing as if we.
I've talked about the overall county spending in every department. I'm not talking about just the fire department. If you looked hard, you could find places where they are wasting money, spending things that are not anywhere near as important as spending on fire protection, and they should cut those things instead of passing higher costs along to us and keeping spending levels at every other, on every other things at the same. That's what I'm talking about.
Well, you have to understand is that the fire department is funded through the fire fund, which is collected through our property taxes primarily. Currently, every dollar of our 1% property tax, 9.3 cents of that goes into the fire fund for the city of Ridgecrest. I know we mentioned earlier that if our property values were got even half as close as they are throughout the state, we probably would not have a deficit because we'd be collecting enough off our property taxes to cover that. So that's part of the other issue too.
Okay, so let me get clear on that then. The fire fund is the sole source of funding for fire department, and if they were to cut, say, one whole entire other department out of the county, that would not add to spending for the fire departments. Is that what you're saying?
The whole idea for the fire fund is to fund the fire department.
Right. But I'm saying, can it be supplemented by other cost cuts in the county so we don't have to pay as much? Or is this like a 218, it can only be spent for fire and that's it, and they can't supplement any other fashion?
Well, when they supplement their fire department, we're not paying our fair share. So we still have a fair share regardless of what happens, because we have 2 fire stations within the city of Ridgecrest that we have to pay for. So even if the county elected to put more general fund money towards the fire department, it shouldn't be on the benefit of the citizens of Ridgecrest. We still have to fit our own bill.
Okay, well, yeah, I see your point. So I'll think about this a little more. So, okay. Any other comment, questions, feedback? Otherwise, I'll get off here.
Nope. Nothing else.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Neal. Any other public comment on the phones? Okay, seeing none. Thank you, gentlemen. We will at this time close the public hearing, and we'll bring it back to the council for a vote.
It's just discussion.
Just a discussion, okay.
Yes, sir.
Then
I guess we can.
There's no action required.
Yeah, there's no public hearing.
No, that's good. I think that I brought up all the questions I had last time. Most of them were just due to funding. Can we forward it? I think I asked mostly money questions last time. I think.
Yeah, we just want to make sure. I mean, like with Mr. Neal's comment, just to be able to give people another chance to ask, a few more questions. I mean, obviously, people can come back during, public comment and ask, but we just want to make just a formal time again, just to make sure that when.
And then that was a valid question, and I think that's something I asked you as well. Hey, did you guys go back and you talked to the county and push back a little bit, and you pushed back real hard, and I appreciate that hard work that you did. So, thanks.
Okay, we will move on to item number 6, a resolution of the Ridgecrest City Council declaring intention to vacate and abandon a certain pedestrian way in Tract 1252 and setting a public hearing per Streets and Highways Code Section 8335. This will be presented by Heather Spratt.
Good evening. So tonight what I have is an intention to vacate and abandon a pedestrian way and to set a public hearing. So this pedestrian way is a 10-foot easement that was recorded in this track map in 1945. So what the pedestrian way did was it divided the block and allowed pedestrians to travel at a midpoint from street to street. This is unused and it's partially blocked at this time. So one of the parcels adjoining this pedestrian way is one of the ones that was surplused by City Council last year. And the party that is offered to purchase the property has asked if we would vacate it. So since it's already partially blocked, we are bringing it here for you tonight. The California Public Streets and Highways Code authorizes the City Council to summarily vacate an easement that has been unused for 5 consecutive years. There is an additional portion of this area that has a public utilities easement, but that would not be vacated. So it's just the 10-foot public utility or pedestrian way portion. I do have a correction for the resolution that is attached to this. So in the first section, it says, whereas it appears that the pedestrian way, so we're going to remove between the lots 10, 11, 34, and 35. And then we're going to add bound on the west by lots 53 and 78, and on the east by lots 54 and 77, as shown on track map 1252. The difference is the difference between a track map numbering and a parcel map numbering. So they're the same exact lots, just the correct legal definition. So with that, this resolution is just to set the public hearing for March the 16th, 2022, so that anybody that wants to speak on the matter can be heard. Anything else?
Thank you. We'll bring it back to the council for any questions.
Yeah, quick question. I think we've been through, if it's happened while I've been on the council, I apologize. It escapes my memory, but I don't remember ever being part of a intention to vacate and abandon situation. What does that mean to vacate and abandon? I'm just really asking
So for this particular easement.
Okay, go ahead. I shut it off.
Okay. For this particular easement, it's just a walkway. And as a pedestrian easement, we should be maintaining it. So by vacating it, then we would be giving that additional 5 foot to each of the property owners on each side. and then we would no longer be responsible for the maintenance. This one actually connects through 2 different blocks, but we're only vacating the portion that's unused.
Thank you.
None.
Mayor Bruin, any questions?
Not at this time. Very clear.
We'll take it to the floor for public comment. Any public comment from the floor? Seeing none, we will move to the phone lines. Any public comment from the phones? Seeing no public comment from the phones, we will, at this point, we're not taking vote, just looking for a agreement to move forward with the public hearing.
Yes.
And with the changes as presented, which you'll have in the next public hearing date.
Correct.
Yes.
Okay. Do we need
we do need a motion to approve the resolution.
Okay, so
Yeah,
we need
to
a
set the
motion.
hearing.
Let's go ahead and bring back to council for a motion for approval.
Yeah, I'd like to. So moved.
Second.
Mayor Bruin.
Aye.
Mr. Blades.
Aye.
Mr. Rajratnam.
Aye.
Mr. Heyman.
Aye.
Ms. Braden.
Aye.
5 ayes, motion carries.
Thank you, Heather. Okay, moving on to item number 7, discussion regarding the board of the Indian Wells Valley Groundwater Authority, and that is with myself. The board has not met since the last council meeting in our discussion. We will be meeting next Wednesday on March 9th. So I don't have anything further to add at this point in time. So any questions or discussion from the council?
No questions from me.
On the adjudication, I heard that they got the waiver for the 1,000. Is that correct? 1,000 filing fee.
Yes, that's true. Yeah, so that $1,000 application fee to file your paperwork, I believe for the first 18 filings was waived last week.
Thank you.
Okay, hearing no.
I think I hear the phones ringing.
Yep. Yeah. All right, seeing no further comments from the council, we'll move to the public comment. Any public comment from the floor? Seeing none, we'll move to the phone.
Did you have something, Megan?
We'll move to the phone
Do you want to talk
lines.
about water? No, not at all.
Okay, caller, go ahead.
Yes, this is Mike Neal. Something that I think it was very important that I brought up, I believe, in part last time. Got refreshed on as to further info on this subject as far as what the groundwater's considering about the basin, and that is the groundwater storage change, which is a critical number that is calculated with by standard means, has been for many years. However, for the last 2 water years, that number is simply not been calculated. Now, blame is semi-passable onto the Kern County Water Agency for its apparent fault in not getting readings done on multiple wells, which are a part of this calculation. But it falls back also in coincidence on the Groundwater Authority's part, because they didn't demand that the Kern County Water Agency get its job done and provide that number. Now, it wouldn't be, viewed as such a big deal, at least in my mind, if the very first time it was put out and then declared to be in some kind of an error was they put a number out which was about a third of what the deficit in the basin storage had been reported in the GSP, which is an unacceptably large difference. So, just to let the council know and any member of the public know that are listening, the Groundwater Agency needs to be sure that those readings get provided by all agencies responsible to provide those, and I believe they could actually be provided for this last year in the very near future, and a reasonable estimate could be made, if it was made whatsoever, think the Groundwater Agency owes it to the public to get that data made available, and the estimate, it's not really an estimate, it's pretty much the nearest calculation that you can make of this value of how much did water go down in our basin last year, and at least for the last year, and how much does it compare to what the agency claimed that it was before they went forward to proceed down the road to committing us to spend hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars to solve a problem that may not be anywhere near as bad as it was put out to be. So just want to let you know that.
Yeah, Mr. Neal, just to add to that, I know that they are going to make their efforts this year to be able to get those well measurements. They were unable to last year due to COVID. But just remember, these well levels fluctuate over time. This is more of a long-term, long view of how the basin's reacting to the pumping. And typically we've seen anywhere between a foot to a foot and a half to 2 foot in the areas of a water decrease. And you have occasionally we'll see a well increase, but over time the overall is a decrease. So just remember, you have to keep a long view on how these wells are decreasing. But I do agree with you that we do need to get the wells read, because that is important data that we need to have over a longer time frame.
Yeah, and just to point out, the first time that it was put out in 2020, which they turned around and kind of rescinded just all of a sudden, they had data for the prior 4 years. It was a 5-year data report from years 2016 to 2020, and then you could average out those calculations over those 5 years, and you see the fluctuations, but it's reasonable to average it out. But when you just say, oh well, we don't have the number, then you really can't do anything. So this wasn't, I'm not talking about a 1 year kind of thing. I'm talking about data that could be thrown into a 5-year average calculation and show you a very reasonable trend. And that's the kind of thing we need to see and the kind of approach that we need to take. But when we don't get the data, they can't move forward with it whatsoever.
And I'd like to add too that at the last GA meeting, this topic was discussed, and Stetson engineers and the staff addressed the well data gathering of the information, and it's also, I think, should be noted that this data has been gathered for many years prior to the last year or 2 years with COVID, that some of the data gaps had occurred. So but it was addressed at the last GA meeting, and the staff are currently working to resolve it. So,
well, that's good, and I hope they will make it a high priority, because that is a very critical number that we need to be sure of. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Neal. Any other callers? Okay, seeing none, we will move on to item number 8, ordinance. This will be the second reading and adoption, ordinance 22-01 of the Ridgecrest City Council amending the Ridgecrest Municipal Code regarding solid waste. This will be presented by Mackenzie.
Sorry, I jumped the gun a little bit. Ran up here for water. Thought I was late. So I apologize. I'm juggling a lot of things right now. But as we know, we brought this at the last council meeting for the first reading. So I'm just going to go ahead and open it up to questions, unless you want me to go over it again. So if anybody would like me to go over it, I can.
I can't speak for the whole council, but I know I went at you pretty hard, and I don't think you need to go back over it again. If there's some questions, we can always come back at you. And by the way, all those things you're juggling, you're doing a very good job.
Thank you.
Just want the public to hear that. You are doing a lot. I'm seeing it behind the scenes, and it's an immense amount of work, and I appreciate everything you're doing.
Thank you. And I am available if anybody from the public does have any questions. I have my card, so it might be a little bit hard to reach right off the bat, but you can always send me an email and we can set up a meeting. So I just want to throw that out there. With that?
Yeah, we do have Philip from HF&H on the line.
We also have Josh Mann on the line from Waste Management
Josh,
as well.
This is just the council's opportunity to ask some additional questions or the community. But I do believe we had a fairly extensive meeting last time where the questions were asked. So staff is here to ask questions. Otherwise, we would request that we move forward in
and even before that, when we first had the intention, the notice That was a long conversation as well.
Correct. That was a really in-depth meeting, so I encourage anybody to look at that agenda packet because our notice of intent to comply does a really good job of listing all of the specific requirements of SB 1383 broken down bit by bit. So it's a really good document if you want to really understand the nuts and bolts of it.
Sure. I think the ordinance was well done. I think we have discussed it ad nauseum. Not that we don't need to discuss again if anybody has any questions or if the public has something. But again, thank you for the work you've done on that. Related, Ricka, do we have a lot of people watching?
There are 22 people watching on YouTube right now. Okay. I do want to state for the record that the the ordinance that was put in the agenda packet was the incorrect one. At the first meeting on the 16th, you did approve the right one. So that's the one we're approving is on the 16th. I just want to clarify that the one that was in the agenda packet was not the final review one. That was my error for putting it in there. So the one we are approving is the one that was in the agenda packet on the 16th, which has been redistributed when I found out the error. So we're good to move forward.
Thank you. So I'm looking forward to any public comments that are out there and any questions that we, the council, can answer back to the public. Because I think that, at the end of the day, the staff does an amazing job of doing everything they're doing, but we're responsible,
Yeah, and I did have a really good conversation. Somebody called me. I won't say their name. I don't know if they want it on the record or anything, but somebody did call me at my office the other day, and we had a good 15, 20-minute phone conversation just answering questions and getting some clarification, because I know there's a lot of confusing things out there. So I definitely encourage anybody to reach out to me with questions, and I'll take the time to go through it with you so you understand.
So we still don't know what the increase in the cost would be, right? Approximately.
Until we bring the franchise agreement up for discussion, I'm not going to say a number because I don't want to back myself into a corner. That makes sense. Yeah, I think Martin would probably agree with me on that.
We have a phone conference with Kern County Environmental Health on March 9th, and that is based upon our request for that variance in trash collection. So if we can get that variance, we can reduce our overall cost by about 45-50%. If we don't, we have to do trash service on a weekly basis, then it's about double that. So we're not talking anything significant. I know we're still negotiating with Waste Management. They're still taking a look at their numbers. So what we're hoping to do is to get past this LEA request, have a direction, and then finish our negotiations with Waste Management, and then we'll be able to come back with what the cost is. But right now, it's not looking like a substantial increase.
So I guess, go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry, Solomon.
Go ahead.
I didn't interrupt you. I just was lost in thought. Go ahead. That is, will we have the option? Some folks have expressed to me they don't appreciate their trash being picked up every other week. Will there be the option for them to contact Waste Management and have their refuse bin picked up every week as opposed to the every other week?
No. If we get the exception, then it'll be every other week, but they can upsize and then get additional can if they need to.
Or so.
Remember, there shouldn't be a lot of stuff that putrefies in your trash can. That should go in your organics can. So if everything is source separated correctly, you shouldn't have that problem. Now, if somebody has a larger family and they truly generate a lot of trash, there's that option of having a second can. So we've been working our way through a lot of these questions. And of course, this step tonight is to approve the ordinance. We are going to be bringing our purchasing policy back to council here probably in the next couple of meetings. And then once we're done with the waste management negotiations, that will be coming back to council for approval. That there we'll have all of the programs that we have and then the prices and everything else to go along with it.
Thank you. I encourage everybody to go back and watch that first meeting, the notice of intent to comply meeting, even before the ordinance. The last meeting we had, I don't know if it was as fruitful, but the first meeting where we went through all the discussion and we had our folks here from HF&H. We answered and we discussed a lot of questions, and some are larger philosophical questions about, the path that the state's on with their environmental policies. I brought up last time, not appreciating the, sometimes the policies of the state of California, but since I am not, in Shannon Grove's place placing votes, and by the way, she voted no for our area for this. There's nothing I can do specifically about that legislation that was passed in 2016.
So, Mr. Strand, did you say you'll bring the franchise agreement to the City Council for approval?
Correct.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, we are, right now we're on an extension because we've been negotiating all of the particulars of the organics program. And of course, we would have, in a perfect world, we would have brought all this together in a bulk package. But because we had the Cal Recycle grant that we needed, we had the ability to get an extension so we could delay the implementation of this program till January 1st of 2023. We're bringing you to this in parts, just out of necessity, just because we're taking advantage of an extension, we're taking advantage of grant funding. But at the end of the day, I think it's going to be a better product while we're working our way through, because we're actually taking a longer view, and this has a lot more public exposure than we would be if it just dropped as one big package. But I would say the next big issue we're going to be bringing once the ordinance is done is the actual waste management contract, and that there has all of our programs and what accommodations that will be made to the public.
Thank you, sir.
The outcome of the waiver, how soon are you going to know that by the time?
Well, we're hoping we got everybody on the phone on March 9th. So and we've Megan along with HF&H, we got a series of we put our request in to the county. County came back with a series of like 15, 16 questions. Between Megan and HF&H, we answered all those questions, basically particulars of the program. And so we're hoping that during that meeting, we will be getting an approval with what our approval conditions would be. And then once we have that, then we can then finish our negotiations with waste management. So we're hoping after the 9th, we're hoping that day we'll have an answer.
We're hoping we'll get an answer at that meeting.
Yeah.
I don't want to say we definitely will. I can't speak for the LEA, but that is the goal.
Yeah, it'd be nice, but
yeah.
We're thinking if they had further questions, they probably would have responded with those questions rather than just setting up a meeting. So we're hoping that we're close to wrapping it up.
Good. Yeah, very good. Any other discussion from the council? Hearing none, we'll move to the public comment. So any public comment from the floor? Seeing none, we'll move to the phone lines. Any public comment from the phones? We have no public comment from the phone, so we'll bring it back to the council. For a motion, we will have two separate motions. I'll go ahead and read off the first one. It's a motion to waive reading in full of an ordinance of the City Council of Ridgecrest, California, amending the Ridgecrest Municipal Code regarding solid waste.
So move.
Second.
Before we take a vote, I do believe the phones rang. Do we want to take that public comment? Martin, would that be okay to do that this time? You were on mute, sir.
It's up to the chair.
Yes, we will hold where we're at right now on our vote, and we will go back to the phone line. Caller, go ahead.
Okay. Yes, Mike Neal, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. What I'm seeing said here is disturbing in this respect. You are going to pass a law that's going to make us all pay more money, but you can't say how much more money that is. You don't have anything. You can say it's not substantial. That means nothing. Until you can put a figure on it, you don't have a complete proposal to put before the public. Now, if you're going to find out how much it's going to cost on March the 9th, then you need to wait until after March the 9th, and you can tell the public, here's what we're going to make you do, and here's how much it's going to cost you. Now, obviously, overall, that's not going to matter, because before you even took up talking about this ordinance, you agreed to submit an intent to comply, so you basically said, we're going to pass this, and we're going to make our people do it. But for you to put something forward to the public that has cost to be incurred by them attached to it with having nothing whatsoever to be able to tell them how much cost that's going to be is inappropriate. It shouldn't not be being discussed and passed until you've got that number to give to us. At least people can, be able to complain about how much it's going to cost them, and you're going to tell them, well, we already tell them we're going to pass this law anyway. But at least you at what you got right now, you just got people willing to be able to complain justly about having the council pass a law and put on top of their heads for some unknown cost. And they're going to do it even though they don't know what it's going to cost. That doesn't make sense, then I guess I don't know what else to say.
Mr. Neal, it makes very good sense. We were just passing an ordinance complying with the law.
Yeah, I know you are.
I think the council made an exception.
I would not ever be willing to do this if I were on the council whatsoever. Not without the cost being a firm, known point.
Go ahead, Barton.
Thank you, Chair. I think council made an exception to allow the speaker to speak. He has done so. It would be my recommendation that you move forward from where you left off.
Thank you, sir. Okay, we will resume where we left off, and that was with a motion to waive the reading in full of an ordinance of the City Council of Ridgecrest, California, amending the Ridgecrest Municipal Code regarding solid waste.
So moved.
Yes, we had a first and a second on the floor. So
I thought we were coming back again. No. Okay. Cool. Let's vote. Let's do it.
We're still on the motion to waive reading in full, correct? Mm-hmm. Okay. So I had a first by Mr. Rajaratnam and a second by Ms. Breeden. So we'll go ahead and take a vote. Mr. Bruin.
Aye.
Mr. Blades.
Aye.
Mr. Rajaratnam.
Aye.
Mr. Heyman.
Aye.
Ms. Breeden. Aye. 5 ayes, motion carries.
Okay, next we have a motion to adopt by title only of an ordinance of the City Council of Ridgecrest, California, amending the Ridgecrest Municipal Code regarding solid waste.
So moved.
Thank you.
Second.
Mayor Bruin.
Aye.
Mr. Blades.
Aye.
Mr. Rajaratnam.
Aye.
Mr. Heyman.
Aye.
Ms. Breeden.
Aye.
5 ayes, motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
This is a discussion after the fact, but even in the last, I've only been on the council for a couple of years now, so I guess it's more directed at you, Peggy. Have you ever had to go back where you didn't agree with some kind of outcome and modify an ordinance?
So you're asking what, sir, again?
Let's just say we get, let's just say the way things work out with the franchise hauler, things don't seem like they're going the way we want, or we find a different or a better option, right? Because I did talk to another city that had a whole, they're doing trash completely different. They're still complying, right? So I guess what I'm wondering is if, have you ever experienced a case where you're like, well, let's go back and modify the ordinance?
We certainly have that opportunity, but this is what we have to do to
Sure.
get to that point.
Sure.
We can always not accept the franchise agreement if the rates are high.
There's the answer there's both of the answers I was looking for. Thank you. I should have asked them during the discussion period, but that's why I hesitated on putting the motion forward. I was wheels turning slowly.
Just as another factor, when the council passed our notice to comply, which allowed us that a year-long extension, we did state we'd have the ordinance completed by April 1st. Mm-hmm. So if we would have waited, as Mr. Neal had suggested, we would have been in violation of our notice to comply. So we had to do that tonight. And it's like any other thing. Any ordinance that you have out there that you want to change, we can just change the ordinance.
Oh, sure, absolutely. Those are just something I want to discuss. And it wasn't even in response to Mr. Neal, actually. It's something I've been wondering, especially I just went to a League of California Cities meeting, and not many people talked about SB 1383, which was odd to me. And I brought it up to some fellow council people that were next to me. How are you doing this? How are you doing this? And they brought up some different ideas, and so I was just thinking about that as we were moving along. So thank you, Chair, for indulging me.
You're welcome.
Okay. Looks like you have a caller.
Okay, we are now going to move on to committee
Chair?
reports.
Do you want to take the caller? It's after the fact, but we could hear due to the delay in YouTube. We could at least hear. It's your call, sir.
I hate to deprive public comment. So, caller, go ahead. Caller, go ahead.
Yes, good evening again tonight. This is Kathy Brown. I'd like to address something with respect to the Groundwater Authority. Dr. Heyman, I'd like to let you know this is just my observation and opinion. When we need to call the Groundwater Authority and report something to them, I think it might be a good idea for the person answering that phone to have, I'll call it a cheat sheet, to refer the public like myself to help me report a water leak. Now, I don't live in the water district in Ridgecrest, so, if you have a leak, you know who to call. There's been a continuous water leak out here on Brown Road, pretty severe the last 2 years, and I mean pretty severe. It went on for, I'd say, a couple months, and I did report it to the Groundwater Authority, and they were very gracious. They did take that report, and she said to me, well, if it's not fixed in a week, call me back, and it was fixed. And then about 5 months later, the same 2 leaks were gushing again, and I called, and they took the report, and they fixed it. Okay, well, now we have another problem with the 2 spots. There's a huge hole in the highway out here. I'm scared to death if someone drives on that, pavement. I think it'd sink their car down maybe eventually. I hope the accident doesn't happen. But anyway, here's my concern. I did call the Groundwater Authority again about that problem recently, in fact, early January, and I was met with a completely different approach. We're talking public perception, having faith in this and that. I was told, I can't help you. You'll have to find out on your own who to call. And I said, well, I'm sorry. Why did you take the 2 calls before when the water was gushing? I mean, you guys are concerned about the water in this valley. I mean, if I see a leak anywhere, I'm concerned about it because of our, situation we're in. And it's not getting any better for all of us. And I just said, well, what's changed about you guys? Why? I mean, who would I call? And like I said, I was told, well, I don't know, call Kern County. And I go, okay, what department, ma'am, would I call? Oh, I don't know. And I was like, oh my gosh, what's going on here? So I said, okay, thank you very much. I got off the phone, pretty upset about the situation, and I called, I Googled actually, Kern County. I thought, well, I'll try the road department maybe, and they said there was an office in Inyo Kern. And I took the number and address, and I called the number, and it rang about 30 times. And there's, I couldn't leave a message. So I got in my car, another adventure for the day. I'm not trying to be funny either, but I was on my way to the post office, so I'll swing around and find that place down in Inyo Kern. And sure enough, I found the lot, and it was open. The door was locked. And I said, okay, who am I going to call next? So just about that time, a very nice gentleman, the supervisor, pulled in. I have nothing but good things to say about him. He opened up his office, and I went in, and I sat down, and I told him my concerns. And he was very aware of the problem, and he said the problem with it out here is that the reason why that leak is continuing is they need a special high-pressured pipe for the plumbing, which makes sense to me, okay? And unfortunately, they're waiting for it because it's coming from China. So he said, I have no idea when we're going to get it. It could be a couple months from now. I don't know. I said, you know what? Thank you so much for clarifying this for me. I called the Groundwater Authority, and I couldn't get help, and you've helped me today, and I have peace of mind. I'm telling everyone out here, this is what's happening. So tonight, I would just like the Groundwater Authority, if you could just possibly, whoever's answering that phone as a public person like I was, and there's other people calling as well, if they could have a number and say, hey, you need to call this number, or take a report for us and call them for us, and that's just my comment tonight. I think it's a valid observation, and I'd like to see an improvement on that because, again, it's communicating. I mean, I don't like to see, like I said, water gushing. And I'm just making you guys aware of this situation that's developed recently. So it was very intimidating. It's like, okay, if I have another leak I see, who do I call? Out here in Indiokern. So thank you very much, Dr. Heyman, for listening. And I hope that this can enlighten the situation maybe better. I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you, Kathy. We appreciate your input, and thank you for your pernicious sticking to it and getting it to the source. It sounds like of the.
I guess, I mean, I like tonight. I'd like to leave everyone with this idea because we have the 5 entities. We're all trying to work together, and my single point of contact is to call the Groundwater Authority if I see something like water gushing, like this was, and it just seemed like I had to circumvent and go around and around as a public person to get to this man who was very, very gracious, and took me at the high pressure pipe, which made sense. So I'd like to think that the Groundwater Authority, I see a breakdown here at this situation with respect to a person like myself, a public person calling to get help. And I hope you guys can correct that in the future so that if I see another leak, and I'm out in the middle here on the highway, I pick up my call, hey, I have a report, because they had taken the reports before. See? And I think it's something, maybe it's just a failure that we need to address and just look into and make it, better for us. And I appreciate you taking time to listen to this tonight because I think it's important. I do. And thank you.
I will pass it forward to the GA board, so thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thank you very much for listening. Thank you.
Okay, moving on, we will next go to committee reports. And we have Infrastructure Committee.
Yes, we met on the 24th. We went over a few things. Street lighting on Downs. Mr. Reed informed us that there were preliminary drawings from SCE. It's something that we're trying to put some sort of suspense on, right? It's important that we get it done. Mr. Reed was worried that we would end up, getting out of compliance. Right? He said if you don't get in with SCE and get drawings done, regulations change. And so, anyways, we're working on it. I can dig down deep if anybody has any questions. Caltrans update Downs and Unicorn intersection. It is important. The road's all jacked up there, and Travis has been talking to Caltrans. Somebody brought up, can we, the city, go and take care, just put down a piece of, some slurry or something to make it better, because it is pretty messed up intersection. But Downs and Unicorn Road, it was just brought up. He said he'd look into it. We had we were putting on the back burner now, but we've had a bike lane infrastructure discussion item on the infrastructure committee meeting for quite some time now. There's a member of the public who's been bringing forth some brilliant ideas about how we modernize the city. He even came to the council at one point. I don't know if you guys remember. There are other cities, and then of course other countries. We look across Western Europe usually, that have modernized their biking traffic in some innovative ways. So we have entertained. We've discussed. We're now at the point that we know the changes we'd want to make would cost a lot of money out of the Measure V. And our assumption, at least on the committee, is that the public would not want to divert money away from the streets over to renovating the bike lanes. However, Mr. Roger Rotman brought up a very good point, is that maybe we should go to the public and ask, if we get the opportunity. And so that's something I'm going to bring up with the staff. Hey, can we get this out in a question, in a poll, and in some sort of fashion? So we'll address that there. Mm-hmm. Went over the improvement schedule for roads, and that's it. A future agenda item is improvements in the heights. That's it for Mr. Roger. Autumn, you have anything? No.
Hey, thank you. So that's all we have tonight for committee reports. And so next we'll move on to other committees, boards, or commissions.
Hey, Scott, just real quickly, Quality of Life was supposed to meet yesterday, and we are rescheduling. There will be an upcoming Quality of Life meeting once Narissa is better and well. I just want to make sure that was stated.
Correct, and thank you for that. And finance was canceled, and so we will have a finance meeting on our next scheduled time frame. And so we have KernCog on February 17th and League of California Cities on February 18th.
Right. So KernCog was pretty routine. It actually kind of just went. There wasn't much going on. Just, are we all good here? Thanks. Let's move forward. So it wasn't much going on there. League of California Cities, however, there was a pretty lively discussion around something that Mayor Bruin's been paying attention to. That's ACA 7. It was supposed to make the ballot. It was going to be a change to the California Constitution, an effort by a certain, not a certain group, but many groups and many different municipalities wanting to bring some, sorry, I'm being monotone, wanting to bring some of our local decision authority back. What it was going to do, in effect, and I'm way overgeneralizing here, but what this amendment to the Constitution, the California Constitution, was going to do was to make the cities the first and foremost, the overriding authority, as opposed to the state setting up all of the rules on how we do zoning and allocations for land, stuff like that. We know right now that some of that, I think it was SB, I might get this wrong, I think it was SB 9. Ms. Bruin, do you remember? SB 9 took a lot right, you took a lot out of our hands, took it away from local control back to state control. The lively discussion centered around this. Do we want different municipalities? Do we want to leave it in the hands of the state? Now, we're all shaking our head, no, we don't want that. Matter of fact, our division, we largely said, absolutely not. Well, there was a lot of other cities that said, yeah, I don't know. I kind of like the idea of the state taking the hit. I kind of like the idea of the state having that say, because it keeps, first of all, it keeps political pressure off us. It also causes other counties and cities, when they're collaborating to be uniform. That's their thought process. I do not agree with that thought process. I think that control needs to be here at the local level. I think we know how to use our land better than, I'll just say it, better than the state does. So that's my own personal view. That was a large discussion in the League of California Cities. We also had a good, long discussion with the San Bernardino sheriff. He brought to light some crime issues that I think are worth mentioning here. Something I was unaware of is that there are, out in the vast expanses of the desert, so now I'm not just talking about our own, Ridgecrest proper, I'm talking about, San Bernardino County, Kern County. There is the Mexican cartels and Chinese cartels I wasn't aware of, with large marijuana grow operations going on. And it's a multi-billion-dollar industry just in our area. He had some pitches on how he thought crime could be combated. I'm not going to go into all that. We have a sheriff, so I'm not going to go into the different initiatives from San Bernardino, but it was a good discussion. That's all I got for the league, unless you guys have any questions back to me. And I know that in the future, Mayor Bruin has a lot more to come on ACA 7, some discussion items, I believe.
Yeah, we're intending to bring forward a resolution on ACAs at the meeting for the second meeting of March, assuming it gets written up. They are delaying moving forward with the constitutional amendment to allow some additional time to obtain signatures, but we're hoping to bring forward a measure of resolution of support by the 16th.
Thank you.
And then the other one, if I could just chime in on other boards and committees, East Kern Economic Alliance is next Thursday, and I believe City Org is getting moved around as well, just because of my schedule, unfortunately.
Kansas City.
Canceled.
Okay.
Sorry, yes, canceled.
Got it. All right, moving on to city manager report.
Yes, I have one item to report on. We did get notified yesterday that we received the Clean California grant, which is a grant of $1.8 million to do some significant improvements over at Leroy Jackson Park. So I want to thank Megan and Narissa and the Quality Life Committee that worked really hard to help put this grant together with our consultant, California consultant. So we did get the grant. I know that there's some next steps that are coming forward where we'll start with the planning process, the design process, and so we can move forward with the bid and get the project done. We should have a press release out this week on that to the community. We have Jennifer and Isabel and Megan that are working. Yeah, so I went out of that, but we're going to do something a little more comprehensive on it to let the public know what we have. So it's going to do a lot to improve that walking path out there, put lights on the tennis courts. That'll be one of the projects that we should be bringing back to council here shortly, is the repair of the tennis courts in conjunction with the new lights. So that'll make a lot of folks happy, because we'll be including the pickleball courts in that as well. So this will also help with shade structures, water fountains, additional trees, outlining or confining the field areas with curb and landscaping. So it's really going to have a real aesthetic look to it, as well as make it a little more friendly for the community to use when it's really hot in the summertime. So they did a really good job on that.
I think that's fantastic news, and I think that all these new improvements that we're going to be doing for the parks, and it's such a huge thing for the community. It's a long-term, long-standing benefits to the community, and after with this 2 years of COVID, one of the most beneficial things for people to do for themselves and for their mental health and for physical health is to have a place that's close by, that they can go out and get out in the open, get out and enjoy themselves and decrease stress in their lives. And I think this is a really big win for the city and the community. And so, okay, future agenda items.
If you don't mind, before you do future agenda items, can I just chime in with my thanks and appreciation for Narissa and the entire team in the Parks and Rec Department. Super proud of everyone there. Nothing better than being in Washington, D.C. and being able in the middle of a dinner throw a fist pump up in the air and be able to share the excitement that we're doing something awesome for our community. And I got a chance to share that with our elected officials today. And they equally can convey their congratulations on the city of Ridgecrest for this big step forward in our Parks and Rec.
It is. I agree. It's really exciting for this community. So fantastic. Okay. I did not hear any future agenda items.
No, sir.
None? Okay. Mayor and council comments. We'll start with Mayor. Let's start from the left here. Councilman Blades.
Sure. Just some general, observations. I think I said something to this effect last time, but I want to keep reiterating it to the public. I don't know how many people are still watching, but these items are 19 folks. These are big ticket items that we're facing. They're not taken lightly, at least not by me, that we've discussed today and in the last couple of council meetings. The fire, we had comments about finance. That's none of those are easy to do, but I am happy to say that we, the council and we, the staff, have worked on them, studied them, and are moving forward professionally. And I think that's important for the public to see. They're already seeing it, and a lot of folks don't comment because they don't. They don't feel like they have to. That's something that I've had to learn doing this job. That is that you will get a few people who will say negative things, and that's valid. The public should give their comments as they wish, but you have many more people who see and don't never comment. They never give us any feedback. And I think it's important we remember that. And it's important the staff remembers that they're doing an amazing job. And I just can't quit giving them compliments because we know that we have changes to make, financially. We know that they deserve more. And we heard from our waste managers and how much, and I'm sure we are working on it. You guys have been working on it for a long time. So this all goes back to, these are big, heavy-hitting items that we're facing right now. This council is facing. And we're going to do it professionally with decorum and respect for the public, and we'll move forward. And I'm glad to be working with you guys, making it happen. The part that I really wanted to add tonight was that it's not easy for me because fundamentally I don't always agree with policies, especially like the trash. It's not my personal belief that the people of Ridgecrest should have to have, in effect, a tax put upon them by the state of California for something they weren't aware of. So it's we face those things all the time, but it's how we face them, and I hope the public's paying attention to that.
Just want to commend our staff for a great job being done. Sherry, the way she presented the financials, so she's taking care of her financials, and Narisa for the California Clean Energy Grant, and then Megan for taking care of the economic development, and Travis Reed for the public works. All this team is led by City Manager Ron Strand. Thank you for your hard work. And I want to thank the public for their participation today, especially ma'am. You have been here for a long time, so I don't know who you are. So can you introduce yourself? But
my name is Nicole Harper, and I am the Career Technical Education Liaison for Sarcoso. So I just got hired from
thank you so much for being here. Yeah, we really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Solomon. Thank you. Mayor Bruin.
Not a huge amount. Just thank you again for a great meeting. It is about 11:45 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, so I'm officially done. I look forward to being home tomorrow to see my kids and back to my wonderful community. But I'm going to share just my one message, which is there is nothing more fulfilling than being able to sit in the congressman's office and speak with pride about everything your community is doing to move itself forward. And with that, it's been my honor to be back here to serve and protect our community. But more importantly, it's my honor to serve this community. And with that, I'm done.
Thank you, Mayor Bruin. So I'll just like to add that the couple that came tonight that's from out of town and spoke, I think that is a huge compliment to our community. And I believe, that if one person comes out and speaks about something, whether it's a positive, contribution like this was, there's 10 or more that are thinking it. And so we appreciate that they're taking the time to come and voice their pleasure with the city and what we have to offer. And I also want to take a minute here and thank Mayor Bruin for taking your time off work and for taking away from your family to represent and do the city's business. And it's greatly appreciated. So we'll look forward to having you back. And I just want to add, a big thank you to everybody for this. Was a great meeting, and I've been on this council for 3 years and a couple of months, and it just keeps getting better. And that's pretty good. And I'm proud of this city, and I'm proud of the work that's being done. It's a lot of work, and with that, this meeting is adjourned. Good night, everybody.
Good night.